every Adivasi and tribal of the country to engage on topic as these. It's our privilege to have among us research scholars, academicians, policy makers, grassroots activists, mukhias of the community to enlighten us on the same. So we hope you are in a happy disposition today and that you will find the presentations and the discussions we have lined up for you to be fruitful and engaging. I would take this time to invite Dr. Vincent Ekka on stage and help us in proceeding the program.
Johar. Good morning everybody. After the long session yesterday, maybe few of us are tired and slowly some are on the way, some are already here. Just to give a recap of what we have had yesterday, some highlights. कल जो भी हम लोगों के इस सेमिनार में हुआ, कुछ मुख्य बातों को बताना चाहता हूँ कि हम लोग ने कल म्यूजिंग्स ऑन इंडिजिनाइटी की शुरुआत की चिंतन करने के लिए इस पर, और हमारा जो कार्यक्रम शुरू हुआ उद्घाटन समारोह के साथ में, उसमें हमारे अलग अलग स्तर के अलग अलग वर्ग के लोग हमारे साथ रहे थे यहाँ मंच पर। कुछ जो ग्रास रूट्स पर काम करते हैं, कुछ लोग जो एकेडमिक्स में हैं और कुछ लोग कार्यकर्ता के रूप में काम कर रहे हैं समाज में बदलाव लाने का। तो इस तरह का एक संगम हमारे सामने रखा गया। उसी तरह का हम लोग इस पूरे कार्यक्रम को देखने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि आदिवासी समाज को हम लोग समग्र रूप से देखने का प्रयास करें। उनमें जो भी चल रहा है, जो भी हो रहा है, उसको सिर्फ पार्ट बाय पार्ट ना देखें, लेकिन हम लोग उसको एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव रूप में देखने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि इसमें क्या क्या जो एक क्षेत्र है जो कि हमारे लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है, किस तरह से ये एक दूसरे से जुड़े हुए हैं, इंटरकनेक्टेड हैं, उसको देखने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं। तो कल हमने देखा कि कैसे इकोलॉजी and the human surrounding is interconnected. There is a mutual relationship between humans and the surroundings that is there, and they live in their everyday life that we have seen how our friends articulated in different regions, how the nature is important, how the mountain is important, how the water, river and the surroundings are important for human existence, and how in close experience and collaboration, especially the tribals, indigenous communities who reside in these surroundings, experience and express their relationship with the surroundings. So a kind of eco-existence yesterday we saw, and later on we saw how they make their living in this surrounding. How do they make their living? So the production system, the self-management of the community, how they are able to manage themselves without any external support or help, purely taking and giving from the surroundings they are living. So that is a kind of sustainability in existence. What is a mutual give and take type of relationship. We ended with panel discussion, which also evoked a lot of new insights into us, and also helped us to ponder on some important questions and areas that we need to pay attention, not to maybe over glorify or over exaggerate, but to try to see in the light of its tenability in tradition and modernity, how we can adapt ourselves into the with the changing world that is around us. So this was the more or less the framework that we have been reflecting yesterday. Today we will go a little further, how we see humans being formed in their communities, in their families, in their villages, in their surroundings, how किस तरह से हमारे गांव घर में, परिवार में, समाज में आदिवासी समाज खास करके अपने बच्चों को, आने वाली पीढ़ी को कैसे ये शिक्षा देते हैं, कैसे जीवन का मूल्य देते हैं, जीने का तरीका कैसे बतलाते हैं, ये सारी चीज़ें एक तरह से शिक्षा है। ना केवल पाठशाला में शिक्षा है, लेकिन तो खेत में, खलिहान में, जंगल में गाय चराते समय, बैल चराते समय किस तरह से हमारा समाज जीवन के मूल्य को साथ साथ में शिक्षा के रूप में हस्तांतरित करते हैं आने वाली पीढ़ी को। तो ह्यूमन फॉर्मेशन इन इंडिजिनस कम्युनिटीज़, उस पर हम लोग आज चिंतन करेंगे। और इसके बाद में न केवल अपने व्यक्तिगत सदस्यों को, समाज और परिवार के, लेकिन तो पूरे समाज को कैसे संचालित करते हैं, हाउ डू दे गवर्न देमसेल्व्स, नॉट ओनली इंडिविजुअली और एज अ फैमिली, एज अ विलेज, बट as a cluster, as a community, how do they govern themselves? What is the self-governance systems? How it is relevant or irrelevant among themselves, and also in relation to the state under which we are all living. So how tribal communities have self-governance systems, whether that could be promoted, continued, or adapted, as there was a kind of dominant theme, adaptation, that was coming, that community has to adapt to the changing situations. So we have been reflecting, and many more things will come, and evening we have the valedictory session. We will also try to chart out some areas which could be taken further. So today also we have whole day's engagement. So we will proceed with our next session that is coming now. So I invite Anupama to take it forward.
Okay, as the tone has already been set in yesterday itself, without further ado, I shall now begin with the first session for today, which is the third of the overall program, Indigenous Way of Human Formation, Indigenous Education System. This session will be moderated by Professor Virginis Khakha, the name that is known and very dear to us, an esteemed academician and scholar. Professor Khakha has taught at various prestigious universities of the countries like Northeastern Hill University, Shillong, Delhi Schools of Economics, University of Delhi, Tejpur University. He was also professor and deputy director of the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Guwahati, and he has chaired a high-level committee in 2013-14, which was constituted by the Prime Minister Office. The committee was mandated to examine the socio-economic, educational and health status of tribal communities and recommended appropriate interventional measures to improve the same. Professor Khakha has also authored many books, which I must say every scholar should read it. Economic Dualism and Structure of Class, a study in plantation and peasant settings in North Bengal, and State and Tribes Issues in Post-Colonial India, co-authored of Tea Plantation Labor in India, are to name a few. To reflect upon this topic, we have among us Dr. Jeffirenius Bakla, as he himself yesterday said, is an ambassador of language. And on 7th of January 2020, he started a residential school named Kuduk Khorha Lur Erpa, meaning at Lur Dippa in Gumla, Jharkhand. This was an attempt to facilitate the learning process of the Kudkhar so that they too can come up like any other community and be part of the national mainstream and become partners in the nation building and all the other communities in India, which are engaged with outstanding results. I would request Professor Virginis Khakha and Dr. Jeffirenius Bakla to please come on stage and grace the dais, and we'll begin with this session. Thank you.
to this special lecture on indigenous way of human formation, indigenous system formation. This is a theme which is something very dear to me as well. And you know, on this particular issues, I don't think there will be any better person than to talk of it other than Zipprianus or Deathwell. I have a long association with him when I was young, like many of the research students. And I began my teaching career at Northeastern University. He was doing theology at Sacred Heart College. And that is when he used to come visit us. And we had a lot of interactions, dialogue. And he was a little unusual than the other Salesian theologians. And in the course of our discussion, we thought that we would like to do something. And since we were both involved in what we call the kind of an intellectual exercise, we decided to have a magazine. And I think we began, if I'm not mistaken, in 1984. 84 or 86. Exactly, I don't remember. Name was Hiraya Group. Sadri was there, but we thought that we wanted to see that as to how Adivasis belonging to either the Urans or Mundas or Khadiyas or Santals or Gonds or others can really, in a sense, because that is a sort of link language among the plantation workers in Assam and Bengal, we thought that that's the way in which we can really bring them together by a kind of platform. I'm not very sure. I also moved out of Ceylon. He has also moved out of Ceylon. So I do not know what is the status of that particular magazine which we had began. It continues. So that's what so this was a collaborative effort that we had. And both of us that moved in different directions since then. And Bakla has been passionate about the issues of the Adivasis. Even when he was in Sacred Heart College, he tried to organize Adivasis in Assam during the Bodo movement, and there were a lot of problems between the Adivasis and the Bodos. And he was one of those who was there was a sort of witch hunting, and then he has to, if I'm not mistaken, he has to leave Assam and then move to, what do we call our native place. And that is where I think he began this new adventure. And I think this is one of the most pioneering work that I can see in the domain of education. It's a fantastic, and I think I personally feel there's a need to replicate this kind of education system, let's say, in different parts of the Adivasi territories. It may not necessarily be the residential schools, but then if you don't have residential schools, then this new kind of adventure will be deprived by a large number of people. But otherwise, I think the system is fantastic, and he will tell more about it. So with this brief personal introductions with him, and as I said, we have been collaborating for a long period of time. I would like to request Dr. Professor Zipprianus Etwa Urang to make his presentations. It take 30 to 40 minutes or whatever. Yeah.
Professor thank you very much for your presentation. I'm a man, a rustic from the village, and you know me in and out. We have been long associated in our social commitment to our people, and perhaps you can say more than what I would say. And at the moment, incidentally, both of us are half blind, because I also had my one eye cataract operation, and he too, and we are applying the next one. So So my dear friends, please bear me out, because I talk to you heart to heart, not from what I have written. And if you want anything from the written, I will maybe with paper I'll hand over, then but whatever requirement I'll try to fulfill it on. But at the moment I want to talk to what I feel and what we have been trying to do. And sometimes I'll very strongly put forward what I think. And because I'm fully convinced, Dr. Haha says, I'm passionate about it. There is something we are supposed to do, we are not doing, and unfortunately many people are not seeing what we are supposed to do. And they are seeing, but they don't want to accept what they want to do, what they ought to do. And that is the reason why we are sitting here. And one particular phenomenon very common among our Adivasis is what you see. We begin anything with great enthusiasm, but then that enthusiasm evaporates as time passes, and finally we end up like what we got Jharkhand. We fought for Jharkhand, and then benefit others reaped. Others are reaping. So any effort that we make is not sustained till the end. Till we have no patience enough to wait for the result, because our very nature is we opt for what is immediate and what is pleasurable, and that is disastrous for us, if we are thinking of the future, because the idyllic situations we are having in the forest, we are enjoying the best that we cannot last forever. We have to compete with the modern world, and therefore we have to, as yesterday Dr. Haha was again saying, we have to update ourselves, we have to evolve, we have to adapt. Those things are required, and in this perhaps we fail, and then our effort also fails, our project fails. Let's say, it is not correct to say that we are victims of certain situations, or maybe political politics, or maybe church politics, or religious politics, and because of a period of time we have to undergo a lot of suffering. But I will say, I take that as a period of formation and reflection, that something better and new is in the waiting. And in the beginning, as we had mentioned that we had started a magazine, and now brothers are carrying on that one, and they are doing better than we had started. But after that, I have stopped writing. I am telling you the reason why. When we started Lurtipa experimentation and experiment in Gumla district, 4 or 5 times planning commission had come. I had put up also website I started. And they say, we have studied your website for 8 times I have studied. They said, just started today. And they came to tell me that. Then I said, it is not yet time to speak about what I want to do, because I had done nothing. So why should I expose what I am trying to do for my people, which is something different? And therefore, I usually don't talk, don't speak, and don't write. Especially I have not written. Many people have should have written down something of what you are thinking and what you are trying to do. But I have never done that. I don't know whether I do it or not. But this is the situation. On the 15th of November 2000, I was traveling from Purnia by bus to Jharkhand, and that day on the Purulia road, many of us were dancing, many people were beating drums. Khel har khal gaya, aur khed nalal gaya, bai padal gaya. But I was crying that day. Why? Because I was associated with Sivasare. I was associated with what you call Munda, Ramdala, yes, and Arjun Munda also. This year, youngsters were trying to, the Aksha movement, I was in the midst as a friend present. There are many boys still, they come and visit me. We had fought for Greater Jharkhand. We had fought for Adivasi autonomy. We had fought for Adivasi future. But one piece of Bihar was given to us, where we have no power. Absolutely no power. And our situation today in Jharkhand is worse than before. We are better under Bihar, part of Bihar than at the moment, because everything is being taken away before our eyes in the name of freedom. Everybody there coming there claiming, I am a Jharkhandi. And we, even our beautiful name, our Adivasi is taken away and say, others are saying Moolvasi, and they are Moolvasi, then we are what? But politics of convenience, they are together, and we have no say, and they are deciding everything for us. So I thought, what will I do now? And I said, I am out of Assam now, to here. So I said, only thing I can do is do something less than what I was dreaming to do. Before I was thinking of the entire Adivasi group, now let me think at least of my own people, Urans, Kurkhar. So those of us will say, Kuduks, no, it is not Kuduks, it is Kurkhar, because the language specific of the language is that singular is Kuduk, but plural is Kurkhar. So I thought of starting that linguistic school, because without quality education, social transformation is impossible. And therefore, we called the elders of the villages together. 22 elders came together, and we said, what shall we do for our people? Definitely, we have been cultivating the land, we have access to the forest. So, access to the forest and some pictures we saw, and our experiences, we have got our own. So there is a feeling that we have now no access to the forest. That is partially true. But when people are united, access is free, at least in my area. In the beginning, government was putting forest guards and then fences, and then they were cutting the trees and taking away. But some of our courageous women, like the Sinigidai of old in Tasgar, they came together. They said, why should they cut our trees and take away? These trees are ours. We live with them. And why others should take away? This government taking away for maybe railway track building. Then they kill few forest guards. If you come here, we'll kill you. Women. And after that, now they don't come. We have access to the forest, we can do what we want. And one day in the Lodipa, we are cutting one tree, big sal tree, for our use. And then one man who is agent of the government, once he was some the forest committee or what they call at village level. So he came to me and said, Father, why are you cutting this tree? With whose order you are cutting this tree? He told me. Then I asked him, with whose order you set fire to the forest? He kept quiet. He had no argument. So our argument, quarrel ended there, and we are doing what we want. Things are not seen, but we have access to the forest. That's what I mean to say. Then we said we can give them food with our effort. Now government is also giving the Jindravas and other facilities, but unless we give them food for thought, then our society will not change, will not survive. So our school is not normal teaching ABCD or let us say 3 arithmetics, reading, writing and what is that one? Arithmetic. It is social formation. It is focused learning which will protect us and will make us successful. And successful, when we say, is this freedom of human beings. And that implication there is that when we say freedom of human beings, we should not be under somebody else. At the moment, we are being governed by state laws, central laws made by others. In other countries, there is a distinction saying that there are government and the people. The conflict can come between government and the people, or a collaboration which takes them forward. But in our place, we have got the people, and their government is not theirs, others who are ruling them. So our situation under the British, in a way, was better than the present one. At this age, I think I can say that when I have seen our situation under the British was better than the present one. So I am saying this because our language is totally neglected, in the school not taught, even missionary schools, when our children are speaking mother tongue at home, and then when they are going to school, they are saying that if you speak Urdu, you'll be sent out of the school. You have to speak Hindi. And Hindi was not of the English, but our system in India, our people, our brothers who are not of our home, they have imposed their language into our education system, and our children, when they went to school, instead of feeling that they are learning something, they were made to feel stupid because they did not know Hindi. They were coming from Kudu. So we said, we will impart knowledge to our children with the mother tongue they learned as human beings. Because what made them different from animals is that to speak, communicate with the mother first and the parents, and they receive at home. So we wanted to carry the home atmosphere to the school so that they could build on what they had learned from their mother and father and the family members, and not say, abandon this one and learn Hindi. I always tell my children, say, be like the wild fowl of the forest, which can trot on its powerful legs, and you cannot catch when it runs. And if it takes to wings, it will go out of your sight. It flies. So we have mother tongue, Kudu, which makes them feel, I am Kudu. And there is two sides of the language. One is visible language. We see with our eyes, and then also we write in script. We invented my friend Dr. Narayan, and then we have hearing, so we speak, and so the school, and together we struggled and had the government recognize our school at the primary level, and then one subject per matric in its own script provided by Dr. Narayan Rao. So this language is visible, but there is another language invisible, and it's being Kuduktua, where every Kuduk should feel for the other. Every child coming to the school must be child of the community, and therefore the best that is provided should be given to him, so that the child can grow in the atmosphere of freedom like a family, and then it can express itself with confidence like a king of the place, because the land, the people, everything that is there, the child should feel it is my own and it is for my help. And similarly, as I am feeling that one, I must also transmit this idea of being honor of the place to other child as well, other members. So in this, a little bit I was in Israel. I studied one semester in Hebrew University, in Mount Scopus, and there we had a chance to visit kibbutz, village system, commune. And one beautiful thing I have seen, and actually I would have tried to replicate in our situation, but it's not possible. And that was one of the purpose why I started the school. Way I started, and then the way it is running now, and it is a failure to a certain extent. And that is this, that in Israel, in kibbutz, parents, as soon as the child is born, they go and hand over to the commune. And in the commune, best of doctors, most caring nurses, scientists, engineers, philosophers, all walks of experts are there to look after the child and study the child and provide what is best for the child for its growth and development. And you see, when a child is a child of a carpenter, the child will grow out to be blind to be a carpenter like his father, because see, the father doing the woodwork. But a child is surrounded by geniuses. Then child also try to be genius. And the best of politicians, best of people are coming out from this commune. I, in my madness, that's why I say I am not a scholar. I am an ideologue. And I am trying to translate what I am thinking. I am to put that idea into practice. But then, of course, there is a long distance between your ideology and your practice, and therefore failures are also galore. So I would have said there is one incident and narrative, and then so I'll proceed with that one, given our traditional system of education. And that is not this conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis, but earlier I had gone for one, what they call, human rights meeting for our congregation level from our area. Two of us were chosen to be sent, and I was one of them. So while I was in Italy, I read in the newspaper there was a conflict in Gaza Strip as it had taken place now. And soon after the conflict, it ended, and the media people came and interviewed the people who were involved in the conflict. First they went to the Palestinian group and they said, this war was very bad, what losses you suffered. So they narrated, I lost my son, this happened, that happened, so much damage was done. All kinds of, only woes they narrated. And then finally, that TV crew went to interview the widow of her only son, a mother of only son, who had died in the war. They went and interviewed her. What do you feel, Mom? You lost your only son and you are a widow. She said, my son was an Israeli and he died for his mother Israel. I am happy. I wish this could be said of my children there. They would feel that Kuduk community is their mother. And every child should feel that I must live and die for my mother, my community. That means I would like to see the development that is taking place now, and the school also finally will try to follow that guideline, saying that I want to work for human development, but Jewish touch. That means they individually try to reach the sky, but then they are always thinking of their own brothers and sisters first. Whatever contribution I make, it is for them. So when a community is so thinking like a family, and for them that experiment is their kibbutz experiment, where they feel that the entire country is their place, a home, and then Israel country is their mother. If this feeling were to come under our community, our tribal community, then at the moment what we are fighting against others, it would have been very easy. But we are not united among ourselves. I have seen, I am telling for Tom Harris, no, that it is not as rosy as we present ourselves to be. Reality is different. Very educated people among our own people, Kuduk people, They are in the cities, they are well to do. But then his own sibling, brother and sister are there in the villages, they are not having nothing to eat. Maybe their chance of getting educated and also the reservation that government has created to favor the elite so that they will forget their the Dalits, the poor at home. They fall into that trap and then they look after themselves. They are my baby bachcha. But then don't think of their own siblings at home, so their situation as miserable as before. I am over 70 years and I have seen no change absolutely. This is because we are rishta. Jeevan is a rishta, life is a relationship, and that relationship is lacking. No feeling, no change. When I landed there to start the school and to bring about social change, I used to tell the educated and well-to-do people, why don't you build a decent house for your parents where you were born? Right? Very few. One fellow was a police officer, he immediately, next year he built a house, 2-story building in the village, but then unfortunately he got sick and died. So, sometimes you suggest something, you have big ideology, you are trying to achieve something, and something happens like that, and then you stop thinking, what is happening? Nothing cooperates. So your God is not cooperating like that, you feel. In a situations like that. So what will bring about change? This only fellow feeling. And the fellow feeling can be brought about, this invisible language, through speaking the oneness. There is a situation when people were saying that, oh, who speaks? Who speaks mother tongue? I don't know my mother tongue. They were feeling proud about it. I have heard one IS, no, as man of great standing in at a political level. Over TV he has said in an interview, I don't know my Indigeneity language. He is despising the language which him human being, he is despising in public. What could be more shocking and unfortunate than this? But there are people like that. They feel proud that they don't know their mother tongue. You learn your mother tongue and after that you learn many other languages, as many languages as possible. But you cannot forget your mother tongue, which has made you a human being. And therefore, community sense is missing. It is how we can recreate. So attempt was to go back to the past. Go back to the past because we wanted to run the school. So we went back to our Dhumkodia. Dhumkodia is an educational institution. Of course, S.C. Roy will say that it was Johadappa and Belladappa, and then sexual promiscuity was rampant, he used to say. But he is an outsider. He will not have a feeling for that. But if that Dhumkodia was a Belladappa and Johadappa, house of young men and house for young ladies, and they were being looked after by elders. And no mishaps in the that house is precisely meant to look after the people till they reach the age of marriage and then they are married off. So what disorder was there? What disorder is being promoted? No, absolute discipline. And only a person of trust and understanding in every aspect of human living that he was chosen, not chosen and elected, but selected and put in charge of this fellow Kotwar or Joe Kotwar. That is the elder in charge of this. Then who are the students there? Students there like the Beit Midrash of the Jews, where aspiring rulers used to go to school and make that place a house of research to manage the society. In our Dhumkodia, everybody was going to school. Boys in the Johadappa and girls in the Belladappa. That means universal education was there. And then we were saying that disparity between gender disparity, men are given chance or women are deprived. That was not there. Both were given chance to go to school, and what did they learn? They learned what they were needed, what they needed. And there are three categories of students. First group was Bedga. Once fellows were rebellious like fellows who just come there and they're looking around what they can do. But then second stage they were mature, they were senior students. There is Cheda, they used to call them. And then the last one was elders within the group. So three groups of people were there, and then so youngsters 12 to 15 were grouped into one. Then 15 to 18 into second group, and then 18 above were another group. Then coming back to us, Alice Roy and others also said that there is a sexual promiscuity, and this was, according to many of our good authors and thinkers, it was not there. On the other hand, it was because of the society was very sound and protected by the elders, because elders were looking after them. And one friend, let's say senior, again, he's a very social activist and then his authority, and he says that he has written a booklet too, a booklet that is private circulation, but I have read there, in which he says that between 13 to 23, 13 से 27 तक कोई गड़बड़े नहीं, ये धूमकुड़िया का नॉर्म था. Dhumkudiya, they were so disciplined. So if you define Dhumkudiya, some say, those who simply write, they say sleeping together. No? Youngsters, boys in one dormitory, adults in one dormitory. Size used to depend upon the cluster of houses around that Dhumkudiya. Usually, house used to be very low roofed and then hardly any window, and the door also was small because it was adapted, as we said, to the environment. In summer you feel very cool inside, and in winter you feel warm inside. That was the system of housing for Dhumkudiya. But once they are inside, they used to be in absolute discipline. So dhum, you heard the Nagada sound yesterday, no? That is a kind of war call. So you have to be a disciplined person. You have to be absolutely disciplined person. So Dhumkudiya was a place of discipline, social discipline. So those boys and girls who came out of discipline, Dhumkudiya, with some kind of certificate. Boys had also kind of that one called mark, no? With sikka. No. Tattoo with iron this or something burning and this to make it seven thing this to make it. And after that he will come. So he is already a mature person and he can be relied upon for any social responsibility, and therefore he can get married or he can be given responsibility in the village. That system was there. So absolute type of discipline. Similarly, girls were being tattooed. This one explanation. And to belonging to the community, sense of belonging to the community, that community dimension is very much. Then you should be asking, then who was the teacher? These were students. And they were taught what? Agriculture. They taught the use of instruments of agriculture, instruments of hunting and defense. All they were taught. In fact, some of them have named, if you go to the books of Korea, they'll say the center was like a paramilitary center, barrack. That means there is absolute discipline. And who were the teachers? Teachers, not like the rabbis in yeshiva or midrash. But there are no teachers. No, some say there are monitors and mentors and mentee, but interaction and education among them, how it took place, they must have been taking the idea from Indian background of Guru and Shishya. It was not there. In this system of education, there was everyone shared his experience. And the other one who heard the experience, he also had his own experience, he also shared. And they came to, after discussion, exchange of ideas, they to a common ground. They said, this should be the norm of our behavior, or this should be the way how we can shoot a bird or an animal or whatever it is. So all kind of knowledge they acquired together. So in Dhumguria, you cannot point out, so was the outstanding Guru. Everyone contributed its share for the building of the community, building of the knowledge. And therefore, even now, if you go now in the villages, there are lots of people who know lots of things, and they share among themselves. And when they fall sick, they are there to help. And when they help, there is what was taught, this war knowledge, and also discipline, we said, agriculture, hunting, fishing, all that. And then also bit of magic. Magic is not what we say profane magic, but relating to God and seeking His help. And through His help, healing takes place. Even now, I think, even in USA, they say the patients who are being prayed for, the rate of healing is faster and more than those who are abandoned with only medical system to experiment upon. So the element of prayer and faith also was there. So let us say our next question will be in Dhumguria, what were the books? What were the source of knowledge? So source of knowledge and the way of teaching community teaching was always sharing and collaboration and no competition. So source of knowledge was experience. Experience that they had, they shared with themselves. Then next source was exchange. They were not keeping their knowledge to themselves, they were passing it to others. And that's why yesterday we have been discussing, say, in Corona period, many, of course, as we say, those who are down in the town, your reaction we cannot question. What you have done, we cannot question. It's a health matter, and then whatever we have done, we are, each one is responsible and respect that one. But then in the villages, good number of people, and I have seen in that, I was also part of the group. Those of you who are in Ranchi, the second day, today was declared lockdown, next day you must have seen in News 18, Bakhla, Etorao, and another boy. We went around distributing food for the beggars. Because all other groups somehow they reached too, because some family members are there, but the beggars are in left railway station and here and there. There are nobody, so we went around distributing food packages, and also police helped us in that one, collaborated. So that was one way of bringing about community consciousness. So to say that I have never taken injection. But whenever people were sick and they called me, I went there and nothing happened to me. There again, this indigenous knowledge system. We have got part of our schooling there, one herbal garden, where people come and they have got knowledge of particular herb which serves this purpose, and they help in the healing process. We have got one Bhagat. When your hand is broken, dangling, you go to the hospital, they will bandage and give some medicine, maybe painkiller, and then 1 month you lie down there, and then you open the bandage, maybe it is not joined, but he does join the, what do you call, the bones in 3 days. Yes, see, it is done. I take all my children to him. 3 days he'll go and say, put the catch there and pull the thing and set everything and bandage. And then come after 3 days. So you go there and remove the bandage after 3 days, and then he'll again do some malice. And after 9 days is perfect. You just remember that you had broken your hand or leg, but for the rest you become normal. Guaranteed. So there are people who are doing that one. So our expenses are spared. We cannot afford to go to the hospital for healing. So we are managing in that situation with less pain, and less money, maybe little more pain, but we are getting healed. Similarly, in a snake bite, I think this is a very common thing. Everybody knows, and that all people know. Cancer cases also there are. At least one man I don't know who comes to the center. Early stage of cancer he there, and he give the medicine and people are out. Seen cases I'm saying. So we have got in the center schooling is there, and then this medical department is there, and then we have got also social development. Social development, Baba is the expert is there, Marianus is there, so I don't want to take the social work, no, he's the director of that one. But we are doing, they also are conducting a seminar and all that. We are taken systematically villages. We are taken now in Barowe 60 villages. And where we are systematically telling how children should behave, how youngsters should behave, how elders should behave, and then how the village should behave. So we are constantly teaching them how to bring about good relationship among themselves. So village pride or community pride, that is there. So one feel very bad when you read in newspaper that one fellow was there and then he killed or he raped one girl or something, and his name is Tirki or Bakhlana. It's very bad. So those things should never appear in our name, no, on those places. Therefore, code of village. So we have, I don't know how successful we'll be, but we have set on Kuru model village, how we can define that. So that is the part of social education we are doing in the village, and at the moment we have 60 villages. And then educational languages said source, experience, exchange, tradition we have kept. So we all festivals we celebrate. All our people is to do traditionally, is to do, we do. So in our school we don't follow Krishnashtami, Janmashtami or whatever it is, or no holidays of Muslims or Hindus, but we are only having tribal holidays. Tribal holidays we celebrate. And then tribal festivals we celebrate in the school, like Karma, like the Kharti, all we celebrate because we want to teach the people also. These are our festivals, these are our point of contact with the divine, which our ancestors experience, and we also want to do that for the children. So those we celebrate. Then with the tradition, of course, definitely culture comes, festival celebrated. So cultural aspect of it, we learn from culture what we have to remain, become cultured. And then another dimension we never, we consider source of knowledge is also our reflection. Whatever we have done in an experience, whether it is good or bad. So we come together, as I said, we have got children coming together, we have got youngsters coming together, we have got men and women coming together differently in different two groups, and then also village aspect. And just as our this you can say medical quacks now they heat, and they say yesterday we were saying that what is the role of a drink in our worship. So we admit that there is some bit of drink in our worship. Okay, so those of you are from that area, especially from Govla district, you know there's two places, you know, Tanginath. is a place of pilgrimage, and for Hindus. Now it has become Hindus is supposed to be of our Sarana people. They are actually, though before going for hunting, they used to do puja, but now these people have taken away and they have put dog and Shivalings there. Then we have got one very famous place, is Kakadulata. They are trying to take it away in the name of tourism. So yesterday it is rightly pointed out that do not promote anything simply for the sake of economy. It can do irreparable damage to the community. So there was a proposal from the government that our Kakadulata as a pilgrimage center should be reformed nicely, and then tourism got to be promoted. I stood in there. I said, this cannot, this cannot be done. And we have stopped that one. Because if you promote tourism, then immediately government will put their worship, pujari or panda and brahmin, and then we are deprived of our place of worship as well. So to keep the community together, that said faith dimensions, they should pray together. So we have said now when we worship our God, we put a little bit of hadiya. So in that place we want to promote a bit of hadiya also. But very like dakras we put in for mass, hadiya will be given to the people when they come to worship. Why? Because then Hindus will not come there. Because in their worship there is no hadiya. And we don't want to use our places of worship to others and for whatever motive, even motive of economy and tourism. So we have said source of knowledge, and we are trying to promote that one. And then last thing that our students learn is to sense of pride of being Kulu. That's why we have started modern Kulu villages. And then also kind of defending our Kulu values and defending our Kulu people. So I am trying to do this one because you see, there is now just recently retired Sukhdev Singh, he's a Jat Chief Secretary. When he was DC of Kumla and he was DC of Ranchi, many times we have gone there. I have gone one side simply to visit Ranchi, and boys and told me, Father, this is what happened. Our boys are beaten up by another group. So you know the DC said, let's go and talk to him. So I went, and Sukhdev Singh told us, you are Adivasi, so you should be beaten up. You beat first, and then come and talk to me. Means that being little strong tribals to defend our land before this plains people in Bihar, they were afraid to become government servants in the Sakanapur area. Now they are found that place as a festival place of everything we can expect with impunity. No. We have to be keep our character. Today we are losing everything. We are on the road to extinction, not because of the government, not because of other group of people. It is because of ourselves. We have lost all that tribal character that we had before. We should be the Jervas of Andaman Nicobar. That character should have been there. We are not, one thing you remember is this: in Israel, Jews never ever fight aggressive war. But if somebody is attacked, we must go for peace. But condition is that you put down your arms first. Then peace is next for guaranteed. But don't tell that you are attacking, fighting and killing our ordinary people, and then you say that Jews must not attack anybody. No. Every community has the right to defend itself. And therefore, my last proposal, and I'm ending my talk, is we are talking about democracy. I mentioned yesterday a little bit. a small group which cannot even elect its own ward member, what democracy you talk about? Why? Because they are scattered in villages around, and those villages others in majority. So even if they put up their candidate, they will never ever be elected. This is not democracy. This is democracy of the dominance, is a dictatorship of the dominance, and they are saying, in the name we are giving vote, precious vote, and we are participating in your freedom. No. Situation and what you call atmosphere is such that you cannot but vote for one particular party. And they are sucking our blood. Then why should we? So I am asking, requesting the judicial level. We are only talking, but we are not going as a group to what we have decided to propose certain things to the government. Maybe if we propose certain things to the government as a group, then government will listen and changes will come about. So we, in the language front, we campaigned and there was no obstacle at all. And we are running our school very peacefully without any problem. But it is interesting to note that there, when we were starting our what they call mother tongue medium of instruction, they were saying, people educate and take the people forward. This man is starting school, will take a job. Let us not be only oriented towards jobs. Let us not be only consumeristic in our attitude towards education, but our quality education should be social transformation. Once people's minds and mentalities change, then what you call happiness is more important in the community, or having everything and committing suicide. Thank you.
बाटला सर को मैं आप लोगों के सामने बाटला सर ने जो हमारे सामने इतनी अपना अनुभव हम सबों के सामने साझा किया, उसका एक संक्षिप्त सा सारांश देना चाहूंगी कि किस तरीके से लूटपा की संरचना हुई और किस तरीके से वो हमारे सामने आया। बाटला सर बताते हैं कि 15 नवंबर 2000 को जब झारखंड का हमारे सामने आया, उससे पहले से ही बाटला सर एक वृहद झारखंड की जो डिमांड कर रहे थे उसमें सुचारू रूप से थे, लेकिन उनको दिखा कि झारखंड मिलने की बजाय सिर्फ एक छोटा सा टुकड़ा बिहार का हमारे हाथ में आया, और फिर ये बातें होने लगी कि हम तो सारे मूल निवासी हैं। और इन्होंने ये बताया कि किस तरीके से आज की स्थिति, इनके शब्दों में, आज की स्थिति से बेहतर तो शायद हमारी स्थिति अंग्रेजों के समय में थी। तो जब मूल निवासी की बात आती है, तो जब वो मूल निवासी हैं तो फिर हम क्या हैं। तो इन्होंने सोचा कि अभी तक तो इन्होंने आदिवासी लोगों के लिए लड़ाई की, तो क्यों ना अब कुड़ुखर जो कि उरांव लोग होते हैं उन लोगों के लिए लड़ाई किया जाए। और यहाँ पर से इनको ये अपने आप को विचारधारी कहते हैं और ये विचारधारा आया। अब इसको सफल बनाने के लिए इन्होंने कोशिश की कि एक ऐसी जगह जहां पर सामुदायिकता कुड़ुखर उरांव लोगों के बीच में पनपे, इसके लिए एक जगह बनाया जाए, जो कि बाटला जी बताते हैं धुमकुड़िया, जो जिसको इंग्लिश में यूथ डॉर्मेट्री कहा जाता है, जहां पर युवक युवती आते हैं। अब इसको जो मानव शास्त्री S.C. रॉय, जिनको हम जानते हैं, अगर आप उनकी लिखी हुई कहानियों में पढ़ेंगे, राइटिंग्स में पढ़ेंगे, तो वो कहा जाता है जहां पर 12-18 से बड़े जो युवक युवती वो साथ आते हैं, और उनका ये भी स्टेटमेंट, ये भी वाक्य रहता है कि फिर उनमें काफी गड़बड़ियां होती हैं जो समाज को नहीं एक्सेप्ट होता है। लेकिन इन्होंने उस चीज को बहुत ही सरल शब्दों में और काफी जोरदार तरीके से इस बात को क्लियर किया है कि यहाँ पर जो धुमकुड़िया में खास करके पढ़ाई जो होती थी, अब वो पढ़ाई वो अलग बात है कि जो दुनिया जिसे पढ़ाई कहती है वो पढ़ाई नहीं, परंतु किस तरीके से एक साथ बन के एक समाज में रहना है, और वो भी उस समाज में हमें गर्व हासिल करना है। इन्होंने बताया कि वो धुमकुड़िया भी 3 तरीके से डिवाइड होता था, बेड़गा, चेड़ा और जो जिसमें बेड़गा जिसका अर्थ वर्ड टू वर्ड जिसको एमलेस बोलते हैं, जिसका कोई एम नहीं है, वो सारे बच्चे, फिर उससे थोड़े बड़े जो मैच्योर हैं, थोड़े परिपक्व हैं, और फिर उसके बाद तीसरा ग्रुप था 18 से ऊपर का ग्रुप। इन्होंने ये भी बताया कि ऐसा लिखा हुआ है कि 18 से 17 तक, जो कि बाकी मानव शास्त्री ऐसा नहीं कहते, 18 से 27 तक युवक युवतियों के बीच में कोई भी गड़बड़ी नहीं होती थी, बाकी अनुशासन के साथ इनका जीवन होता था। और बाखला सर बताते हैं अपने एक्सपीरियंस के साथ, जब वो इजराइल में थे तो उन्होंने कैसे वो वहां पर लोगों के अनुभव को देखा कि वो अपने देश के ऊपर मर मिटने के लिए अमिट रहते हैं, और फिर उसी जज्बे को वो चाहते हैं कि हमारे भी कम्युनिटी में, हमारे भी लोगों के बीच में रहे। कुछ गड़बड़ियां जो हमारे समाज में पाई जाती हैं उसको भी उन्होंने वो बताया कि किस तरीके से लोग सिर्फ अपना सोच के जब वो पढ़ लिख कर आगे बढ़ जाते हैं तो जो लोग हमारे पीछे जो गांव में रह जाते हैं उनकी सुधि नहीं लेते। तो इन्होंने वो बताया कि एक कम्युनिटी फीलिंग जो आपस में वो ऐसी फीलिंग की जो समाज को एक साथ लेके आगे बढ़ने की है, वो हमको हमारे में लाना होगा, जो कि बाखला साहब के अनुसार सबसे ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण है भाषा के कारण। भाषा अगर हम अपने इसको सर्वोपरि रखते हैं तो तभी हम इस चीज को आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं। और जो अभी बाखला साहब का बहुत ही लेटेस्ट जो बहुत ही नया जो पहल है वो ये है कि इन्होंने 60 स्कूल को मॉडल स्कूल की 60 गांव को कुड़ुख मॉडल की तरह लिया है, जहां पर सामुदायिक एजुकेशन, जहां पर वो जाके लोगों को किस तरीके से अपनी कुड़ुख भाषा पे गर्व करना है वो सिखाते हैं। और इस तरीके में वहां जाकर कुड़ुख पर्व जैसे कि करम, खत्ती पर ये सब मनाने को ज्यादा उत्साहित करते हैं लोगों को। और इसके साथ साथ ही वहां पर जो 2 जगह है टंगीनाथ और करकलता, यहाँ पर भी जाके किस तरीके से, जैसे वो बता रहे थे कल का जो हमारा डिस्कशन था हड़िया के बारे में, कि वो हड़िया भी किस तरीके से हमारे विश्वास का एक हिस्सा है। तो उसको भी जब हम प्रैक्टिस करते हैं आज की डेट में, ना कि उससे अलग हो जाते हैं, तो वह हमारे कल्चर का, हमारी संस्कृति का एक हिस्सा बनता है और हम उसको बड़े ही गर्व के साथ लेके आगे बढ़ते हैं। तो बखला सर को धन्यवाद। ओवर टू यू।
Wonderful presentations of the experiences and the processes and the history through which, let's say, the films have really worked out in the schools and around the place. So we open it for comments or questions for the next 10 minutes or so, and then I'll just take 5-6 minutes of this one. Yeah. And please be brief and precise so that we can take as many questions possible.
Thank you. It was a lovely talk. Can I ask, I'm interested in peace building, how do you get the kids to cooperate, build harmony, not fight? I mean, normally children fight in school and get jealous and have egos. And how do you do that? How do you get them to be so peaceful?
Okay. Anyone else, please? Yeah. Short maybe.
Sir, as per our tradition, this Dumburia was a very rich center for the education. But how it has been disappeared from our society and how we will revive it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, sir. As you mentioned about the source of knowledge is about experience, insights, sharing. So I'm curious to know, is it done age appropriate wise also, like which age group will get which type of knowledge, and if it is done, how you distinguish that source of knowledge? Thank you.
One one more and then we'll come to the second round. Anyone? Yeah.
Just a very inspiring talk. मैंने आपसे दो सवाल है। आपने कहा कि बच्चे the entire experiment looks very nice. I just want to know that जब हम लोग education के बारे में अंग्रेजी मीडियम की तरफ लोग जा रहे हैं, तो क्या बच्चे आ रहे हैं स्कूल में किस तरह के आपके challenges हुए थे पहला, और दूसरा जो है अभी आपने जो नया पहल जो किया है वो 60 villages, we are associated with 60 villages. So I would really like to know the entire model and how easy or how difficult was it to get into those things and why the village came together.
Answer to
We'll have second round of questions.
Sir, Tom, our children there, I can only say they come and see. We don't have any authorities. The headmaster comes from the village, so he's not there. But our children get up in the morning and they study on their own. There is no servant in the entire school. Every work is done by the children. So it is not, let us say, we are making the children work so that Western concept or whatever concept from wherever it has come. And then children must learn to work. They are preparing learning for their life. So instead of maybe conflict comes because there is somebody is there to tell and others have to work, but they decide. And every now and then Sunday we have to come together, entire school, and we discuss, reason out with them, why we are doing this one, why you do like this. And then we get the answer from children themselves, no, we must do this one and we must avoid that one. So because of the consensus we get from the children, we go ahead with that. Okay? And how we can replicate this model, why it has gone out, this is my pet thinking. Okay? Sorry for saying that one, because our area is a conflict area. You see, we are simply very comfortably perched over a heap of gold, diamond, or what kind of resources they have, and others are eyeing on it and they want to exploit those resources and go ahead, and we want to remain comfortable there. So they are suggesting new ideas from outside. And then our people who are educated, because of the reservation policy, which the educated and the able are able to benefit themselves, they're leaving out the others. And therefore, this whatever is good and solid and sound for our people's well-being, they have been abandoned and they people are going to another one. And from that corner, what was the question? Age-appropriate education. We see there are three groups. So they need more discipline. So maybe the elder ones, they guide them, but automatically, you see, the idea has weight. If you tell the right thing, and because of that you are respected among your peers, then automatically others follow. So not only one fellow saying, one teacher or one monitor telling, banging, no, but as you display your quality, you will also gain respect. And that controls the group, and then people are, when they come in form and then follow what is being told. Then we said also 60 villages. It is an attempt, we are seeing now how far will be successful in creating a group of villages, we cannot know. Because in the school we have what also this under the name of promoting this Tolong Siki script. We have got at the moment 12 villages are going, every day somebody is going there and teaching them. Those who know, so it is always on the voluntary basis. If you want to learn more of your mother tongue script, then you can go teach the children and you learn yourself. My mother died at 101, but she did not know how to read and write. But then before dying, she said, I also learned this Kuduku script. And she made effort, she sat the children and she learned. And we told her, you will have plenty of job in heaven, because many of our Kuduku people have gone to heaven without knowing the letters. And she was very systematic and learned what she was able to write before she died. Okay.
Yeah. Second round of questions. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
This one. Oh, okay, sorry. I'll just give that time.
Okay.
Very quick.
How do you sustain yourself financially in terms of fee structure, salary structure, etc.? So, if you can give a little highlight on that.
And then there's the last side, and then there's the other side.
So thank you for a very insightful lecture and sharing your experience. I just wanted to know about reviving these languages. Tribal languages are declining, specifically among the youngsters. So are you using new social media also, like promoting it, or specifically like the youngsters? How are you doing it, sir?
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So, when you mention culture, so when we
Yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about culture, one of the important elements is the indigenous religion that we tribals follow. No? So if I'm not wrong, I think you have mentioned something about the tribal religion that is there in your area. So my question specifically is, what are you into preserving those indigenous, religion or beliefs and practices? And what is the status of the indigenous religion there? So, because back in our...
As I said, I was a little influenced by the cable system where the state is supporting. No? So, in the beginning when children came, I was not asking them how much you are paying, but it was important that you are coming to learn. Okay. So, that freedom I started, and then somehow those days I was getting money from here and there, and I was managing to pay something to teachers. And teachers are so motivated that whether they get the pay or not, they come and teach really well. And that is one benefit that I have got. I am enjoying. But in today this forum, I will appeal all the who are interested. I am a man of age now, and I'll give my account number. You send your help. If you invest in the society, it will come back to you. But I know that many well-to-do, our own tribal people, they are able to give huge money to the church. I don't know where the money goes, because it is universal boksa, where कहाँ जाता है पता ही नहीं ना. लेकिन फिर भी बहुत देता है. लेकिन ये समाज के लिए कंट्रीब्यूट करने के लिए बहुत अधिक पीछे है. तो इसमें हम लोग इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ेगा. No, there should be actually a fund for any able student who is able to study should have no problem at all. We should be able to send our children to NASA, to ISRO, to whatever area. They should not suffer from lack of fund. If we get organized in this way, somebody does that one in the form of scholarship, it will be wonderful, and that is needed. Invest into your society. Okay? And then you said about youth forum, no? They are interested. They are interested. So many young children who have passed out of my school, they are making what they call YouTube, and they are singing some songs, they are writing something, and they are playing tea are coming. So they have picked up. They are taking interest. I think any good thing to really do for your community, people will get interested, and they are picking up. I am very, very consoled with that idea. Okay, thank you. Then the Arunachal case, what you say is correct. I agree with you. But then, let's see, before we become Christians, no, we have been religious for ages. We do not know. And those values have kept up our society to this day. And therefore, those religious forms that maybe today, whoever or our conviction, we discarded them, they have got absolute value. And many of the things that our indigenous religions are teaching are actually values being taught and being propagated also by whatever religion you are following. Therefore, it is necessary to be kept. And then according to the Indian Constitution, actually is Sarna Masna, no? Where we are buried and where we are going for worship, they are respected by the government, and therefore they are a security cover for us. So that if you go and fight under that, then we are being respected and then we are safe.
What was your question? Challenges from the youth.
Challenges from the youth, I said, they are not challenging, they are cooperating. At least in my thing, because any work you give them, because as of my age, and then also like that, many things I do not know, but the children, youth are coming forward. And then you will be wondering, in certain days, some festivals, for example, Karam festival, or people from all sides are streaming to that place now, thousands. And people, non-tribal, see that one, what is there in this place that so many people are coming. I suppose they are getting something from there. And they organize. Youth gets involved and others get involved. Each one is getting involved and organize the whole event. And then it's nice to see, a nice experience.
Thank you. I need to wind up by 11:15. I have 7-8 minutes, so I want to make my own observation. There are many things on which I agree with him. There are some things on which I don't agree with him. But that's part of our, to say that ideologues don't write. I think Karl Marx is the best example. There is an idea about what he has written. So many things he has written. So being an ideologue doesn't stop you from writing. That's what. It's a fact that I have learned a great deal. I visited the school. I was in Jaspur. In our tea gardens, when people used to go to Jaspur or Ranchi, they said, "Where this are here, this." So I had gone to my this in the last May, and then I came to know that it's not very far. Dumri is not very far from Jaspur, so I just went and met him. And I had not seen the school. I had heard a lot about him. I think there's something we should really do about that school. But it has been built up, and unfortunately, it was politics. I couldn't really meet. I met him, but in a sense, school children and all that. But I think those who are from the Puruk society probably really need to think about it. Is there any way in which I can support? In fact, I did promise that I will try to work out a sort of platform, try to see as to if there are people who really can come together, discuss it, and as to how to make it, take it forward. But I've been also just pleased, and then I couldn't really do it. But I think I was thinking that if once or twice we make a platform and we discuss and as to how best we can really help. And not only at Low Dipper, but is there a possibility for us to take this forward in other places as well? It could be in other schools, other places, because one school cannot really revive the language and identity and take a pride in that. So that's, I think, something we really need to think about it. Language is something, I guess, education is something I'm really passionate about it, and language is something I'm very much bothered about it. I think the fact that we have been introduced to learn a language other than our mother tongue, to my mind, it has done a great damage. I've lived in the Northeast, and except for Arunachal, I'm sorry to say, most of the tribal communities in the Northeast, they just learn through their mother tongue, the primary schools, and they study the language of the class 10. There's also in the colleges it's being taught and all that. And I think you can find that they have their own language, they learn English, and they learn other languages as well. Now that's what I think, and I think what we're really happening in the central India, I think, we are introduced to this and we replace our mother tongue with Hindi. And I've always been thinking, I don't really like to say, but then sometimes I think, can we fight someone who is oppressing you by using their language? Can you really fight? I think there is a need for us to think. Is there a possibility for us to think, to fight as someone whose language we have adopted ourselves? I think there's a and I think I learned a great deal from Northeast. Northeast, I think, they learn language. They challenge the Assamese language, they impose Assamese language. Let's say Mijos, Nagas, and the Khasis. When medium of instructions were being imposed around 1960, they challenged it. And that was one of the reasons, what's called catalyst to have a movement out of Assam. And the Nagaland was already there, Mizoram was created, so Mega Hills was created. You have autonomous councils where they have the legislative, executive, judicial power over the district. So that is their own mother tongue. I think so. I think something has been done, a great deal of damage to that. And I think historically, maybe the missionaries thought that we should really be able to adapt and negotiate with the larger state and all that in the process they introduced. But in the process, a great deal of damage was done. They also missionaries did many good things about language. When they said producing books, dictionaries, encyclopedia and all that. But it didn't, but the most of it was undoing of what we had. Actually, that was really catastrophic. And of course, I was associated, it's not the Adivasis invited me, but there was some on the left-wing people, but they were working with the tea garden workers, and so they invited myself and a Santhal literary figure, he was there. And went around all the places, and I thought that the Adivasis in Assam have died. There is no revival of their culture. And when I went back in 2011 to start the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, suddenly I saw Adivasi Mahasabha in the Guwahati. I just became curious. What is this Adivasi Mahasabha? I thought that they are finished. Which in the 10 years, the tremendous changes that it has gone about it. And today, if you go to Assam, I don't think it's Jharkhand or the Jaspur or they really feel about. But if you go in Assam, you feel that feel of Adivasi identity. Of course, one of the reasons is because they don't have scheduled tribe status. But nevertheless, they have revived their dances, they have revived the language, they have all so they have done. So there's a possibility of retrieve. This is what I'm saying. It's not that it's a social media world, and therefore there's a possibility of retrieving it. And I think most of us, we are really, because Adivasis were being thought as jungly and all that, we have internalized that part of being in jungly. We have internalized, we think that we are inferior, that we are in jungly, we feel a complexity. And I think that's the reason we say that we want to not to identify ourselves, particularly in the city, say, oh, if I want to say I'm a tribal, I'll be discriminated, people will know I'll be. But Northeast people don't feel about it. Why should Central Indian people feel about it? Northeast India is openly, okay, they're physically or different, but nevertheless openly they do it. They don't feel shy of it. Why is it that Central Indian tribals should really feel shy of it? And I'm puzzled about it. Yes, you feel anxiety, and I've gone through it. If I write myself what I have gone through it, but I have not hidden my identity, and people know about it. So I think we have to, and I think one of the best ways of doing it is to take a pride. As he says, if you don't have a pride in your own community to which you belong, and I think the greatest pride to the community to which you belong is the language, and it is through our language, the mother tongue, that we can actually, in a sense, negotiate with the larger world. And we can, for example, you take mathematics teaching. I've always thought, why is the Adivasis so terrified of numbers? Terrified of numbers. Because the way it has been taught is terrifying. This abstract teaching, Adivasis don't, abstract is at the highest level you get. At the very beginning you bring an abstraction, it can't really help. Why can't we use the way, I've always said, why the dance rhythm you have? There are several rhythms of the dance. Why can't we use the dance and the rhythm that we take, and as to how you really can teach 1, 2, 3 and then multiply this? It's possible to do it. And I think these are, so somewhere else, I think because we have uprooted ourselves, and being uprooted, we have been trying to understand, trying to educate. I think we're not doing well as well. we are not doing that as well because we have not really been grown into from where our mother tongue was there and has already grown up. In fact, I think this is something we, as educated Adivasis and Uraos, we really need to think very seriously about it. Know these people, they learn their language, they learn English, and English they communicate with others. And I think we must put on honors on English as the Gurdipa school does. I see a great value on that rather than, and Hindi you learn language, I'm not saying it, but the mother tongue in English in India, to my mind, is very, very important. And then learn your regional language, or learn French or German, I have no problem with that. But I think this is, you can contain other people only through, either through mother tongue or a language which is different than they speak. You can't contain them, you can't really negotiate them in the language which they speak, their mother tongue, and you adopt them and you try to confront that. I think basically that means that we need to decolonize our mind in order to move forward. And this is possible to do it. I think these are, maybe we have grown up. If we have been able to decolonize ourselves, I think children should really be able to decolonize themselves as well. And it is a great opportunity. So thank you very much for
of Sahyadri in lap of nature. There is a piece of area named Kuba village, surrounded by beautiful mountains. We see lack of water, electricity, road, education, health facility, such like infrastructures which are primary to human content. We get single bus to reach Awalkhandi. Then we have to take a walk from Awalkhandi to reach our destination, Kola. A young named Neelam is building a small area of nation dreamed by Mahatma Gandhi.
જે ગામમાં બહુ અગવડ હોય એ ગામમાં જવું જોઈએ તો ત્યારબાદ એક શિક્ષકે કીધું કે કોબા ગામમાં જાઓ ત્યાં શિક્ષણની બહુ જ અછત છે અને કંઈક ત્યાં નવું કરો.
It's effort of Gandhian life.
I would now request all of you to please start settling in and take your seats. सारे जो बाहर खड़े हैं आपसे अनुरोध है कि आप जल्दी अंदर आने का कष्ट करें. I would request the volunteers to kindly let the participants enter. We shall now start with our continued session. After quite an insightful and productive session in the morning, we shall now proceed with the second part. For this, this slight change in the schedule, we have Shaukhai Mayer now presenting paper for us, a PhD candidate from TIS Mumbai. I request you to kindly take a seat on the dais if you are here. Sneha Tirki, research scholar, English and foreign language, Hyderabad. We also have Kailas Vasavi from National Law University, Maharashtra. In this session, we'll have 3 papers to be presented, and the session will be moderated by Professor Virginius Kaka. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, so this is a continuation from the previous segment. This is to do with, again, the human formation, namely education. So we have here 3 papers. We begin with, how do you pronounce? Mayrnau. Yeah. So Mayrnau you begin with, then Sneha, and then after that. Take a minute, sorry, just 1 minute. It's 11:30. We have to 1 o'clock. So make it 15 minutes. So around 12 minutes I will just ask. So 3 minutes you will have to wind up. Thank you, Professor Kaka, dignitaries, and my dear colleagues, friends. Oh, sorry. The title of my topic is Annihilation of Longshin, a decolonial analysis. So, Longshin, I came to know that it's called in Korea also. Yeah, but in our dialect it's called Longshin. Then across Nagaland and other parts of Northeast India, it's also known as Moru. Yeah, so my my article, it's a sort of I'm trying to understand the adverse impacts of annihilation of Longshin. Then it also challenges the colonial case in Longshin. Then I try to look at the diverse and adverse impacts of annihilation of Longshin. Then I came to see that there are a lot of other factors and variables involved in it, but then I mainly focus on two things. So I look at two things. So the first one, my major argument is that in annihilating or abolishing the Longshin, there came a point where there was a kind of a cognitive seizure, in the sense that there was a lapse in the mental and cognitive processes due to externalities and internal reorientation caused by the externalities. Then I also argue that there was another sort of seizure, which is the epistemic apoplexy in the Tangku-Naka history of ideas and thoughts. This is the impairment of the epistemic capacity and cognitive capacity, making capacity. So now prolonged over years, over decades and over generations, this apoplexy became inevitable. So that will be discussed later. Then I also look at the Tangku-Naga understanding of the duality of subjectivity and intersubjectivity and the interplay of the two. Yeah, so without much on this one, but I'll just give a short background on this one. So Tangku-Nagas are one of the communities. One of the communities of Nagas, then Tangku-Nagas are a transnational community in the sense that they live both in Myanmar also and then India also. Then the ones on the Indian side, they are 100% Christian. Then on the Myanmar side, it's not, so we don't have the statistics of it yet now. Then the person who brought evangelization or Christianity among the Tangkus is called Dr. Reverend William Pettigrew. Then Punpun village is the particular village where he came and settled in 1896. Then that particular village later also became the Tangku-Naga dialect. Then Then also Pettigrew, he was also the superintendent of education in Manipur from 1895 to 1903. Then also the kind of social system that we had, or the Tamil Nagas had at that point of time, was the traditional one. So in order to bring Christianity to it, William Pettigrew tried to forbid churchgoers from attending cultural events and drinking rice beers. Then rice beers were prohibited. Then education was introduced, but the level of education or the education policy, which will be discussed later, was only at the level of to bring about evangelization, but not to bring about sort of quality education. Then, and most of the native writing, it came about, the Christianization started in 1897. Then the native writing, which came in the form of books, but it were mostly on biblical notes, then reader's guide, Bible reader's guide, then a kind of analytical, or say a proper kind of a book came only in 1961. That is more than half a century later. So there are a lot of reasons, but these are the reasons that I have used here. So the unrestrained introduction of Western education, then proselytization, then other forms of colonial intrusions, in the sense that trying to intrude into the village functioning systems and other so. Then also the adverse impacts of Christianization, then which also these are all cyclical, in the sense that it's annihilation of one leads to the annihilation of next one. So annihilation of Longshim, which can also be said as annihilation of introduction of Christianization. So here it brought about a change in the worldview. Then a change in the worldview, also the annihilation of Longshim also brought about the end of the oral tradition. Then end of oral tradition also means a switch from oral tradition to written literature. Then here, another thing which also brought about was the annihilation of Longshim, brought about a sort of privatize the parenting system and also the education system. And it also dismantled the indigenous Dampunaka philosophy of it takes a whole village to raise a child. So with privatization of education and parenting, which came after the annihilation of Longshim. Then this period is followed by another factor, which is, I use the term cognitive seizure in the psychosocial history of Dampunaka man. So cognitive seizure, I use the term as the lapses in the mental growth and cognitive processes due to external and internal reorientation caused by the externalities. So in Thom's argument, he argues that abandonment of one's religion causes disintegration of social life, loss of language, and alterations of worldview and values. Thus, confusion followed conversion, thereby creating social and psychological dysfunction. So, in the case of Dampu Nagas, the switch from oral tradition to written tradition, it's the switch in the technology of communication. it leads to sort of, prior to the introduction of Western education or Western education, the form of communication was oral. Later it became written. So in the transition from oral to written, here the inner speech had to be brought into some form of a graphic form, that is scripts. So in this transition, there was a period where the Dangkul Naka minds could not adapt to the change, because there was some sort of a reluctance in the Dangkul Naka minds. Also, there was some sort of a sullen resistance, and because of the imposition, not through proper channels. So this brought about a sort of double consciousness in the Dangkul Naka minds. So here, double consciousness, I use a term from Dubois. So here his definition is this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, and of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on it in amused contempt and pity. So that double consciousness also brought about sort of a self-abdication and self-debasement. And this also brought about another form of epistemic apoplexy, which is the cognitive stature impaired epistemic capacity, leading to a dark period in the Dangkul Naka history of ideas and thought. So, just when the Western education was introduced, and not many were attending the schools, and many were reluctant. Also, on the other hand, the traditional education system had been prohibited, halted. So there was a period where there was no production or dissemination of knowledge. So this period, I call it as the dark period in the history of Dangkul Naka idea and thoughts. So also, why there was an epistemic apoplexy is because of the colonial education policy also. So here I argue that the content, by taking John Thomas's word, the content of educational program should be primarily to fulfill the agenda of evangelization. Then the next is modern education as such was a secular affair, and because of which there are high possibilities that the passion for learning may destroy true piety. So if you look at this text, we know that the intent or the objective of introducing education was not to educate the people. It was just to serve their colonial projects and project. So this period of more than half a century, which came in like 1961 through the form of a proper book. So yeah. So I also have introduced a new term which I am working on it. So this is what I call the bonsaification of indigenous people. So bonsaification, I drew this word from that Middle East, East Asian art, where this plants, trees are aestheticized and miniaturized in a small form, where you have all the aestheticized form, but it's the people are like the plant is dwarfed into a miniature. So I kind of also see that there is this some sort of bonsaification of indigenous people. They make in some ways exoticized. exoticized. So this process is I'll go to the next. I'll just finish it. Okay. So here, now I also look at the quality of the subjectivity, intersubjectivity, and the interplay of the two among the Tangkhul Naga people. So here, in another paper, I have argued that because of the oral traditions that we had and the kind of education system which we had under Longshin, so for that and other reasons, we had a listening and a dialogic mind. And for this one, the Tangkhul Naga mind, the indigenous Tangkhul Naga mind, recognizes and exercises intersubjectivity more over subjectivity in social spheres and vice versa in the private spheres. And given the Tangkhul Naga axiology of abhorrence towards self-deception, deception and external intrusion. So here, this one, like in the case of Tangkhul Nagas, even if I want to, even if I'm in a situation where I would benefit, I would be benefited by telling certain things, by lying, but even if I know that, then there will be some benefits by saying something which I don't really mean, that I would not do it. People would not do that. So here, there's some sort of this one. They don't like. They don't want to be deceived. Also, they don't deceive others, in the sense that like Professor Bakla said, that fellow feeling attitude, the fellow feeling altruistic attitude towards fellow citizens. So next is then also their love for space and time to manifest and exercise their encritic self. So encritic self, this is encritia, I borrowed from the Greek word, so encritia, so this is self-mastery over your own self. So here, also if we look at the works of Gamu, there's a very popular saying, integrity has no need for rules. So if I look at the people, the indigenous people, I see this also. So, but in the present modern times, the continuity of this one has been compromised to a large extent, where the Tangkhul people are at a loss of where at the interplay of the two. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Next is now. 15 minutes now.
Johar everyone. So the topic is indigenous research towards developing indigenous methodology with respect to Adivasi studies. So research is the paradigm of indigenous studies. It has been a challenge from the very beginning. Indigenous communities are heterogeneous in nature. There are similarities as well as differences in varied indigenous communities. Linda Smith's work on indigenous methodologies argues not only about the existing knowledge about the indigenous communities, but also the need to develop a new methodology which would become an effective method to engage with different tribal groups. She points out to the biasness of the unilinear concept of development, colonization, thereby questioning epistemology, universalization of knowledge, and its objectivity. When it comes to Adivasis, the perception of colonization varies. The indigenous communities in India were exploited and oppressed by different groups before West came in contact with them. The problems of Adivasis are different from other indigenous groups. However, they share some common global indigenous issues So the presentation attempts to delineate indigenous methodologies in terms of Adivasi studies, focusing on their history. So the term research in broad sense carries a heavy colonial legacy for indigenous communities, evoking discomfort and resentment due to its association with European imperialism and colonization. They look at it in a very skeptic manner. The historical injustice continues to deny indigenous rights to land, self-determination, language, and resources. Edward Said's framework sheds light on how scholarly and imaginative construction of the other influenced the understanding of indigenous people in colonial context. Linda Smith talks about history of subordination of the indigenous communities. History is extremely significant for these communities. There are very few histories that have been written appropriately. Most of the histories are either never been documented or documented in a distorted manner, which is highly biased. The concept of totality assumes the possibility and desirability of being able to include absolutely all known knowledge into a coherent whole. The idea that history is a totalizing discourse, believing that there is a universal history, putting it into a larger chronology, is extremely dangerous. Indigenous communities are often assessed in terms of progress and development. Conceptualizing these further leads to self-actualizing human subject. Self is appropriated in Kantian and Descartes' way, to a large extent relating it with homo noumena and homo phenomena, that is universalized in a way which barely gives any space to Adivasis. The idea that history as a discipline is innocent and devoid of prejudices makes it even more difficult to convince the world, which has internalized history around binary categories, that is patriarchal. The travelogues of explorers and experiences of dominant few has been taken as objective truth as it has entered into various disciplines. Indigenous communities have always been contesting this notion of history. Writing without critical thinking is dangerous. The style of writing also depicts the amount of influence of dominant society. Ngugi wa Thiong'o tries to portray in his work Decolonizing Mind. He refers to the need of indigenous people reading works on them, which can happen to a significant extent if it is written in the language of the people. He decided to stop writing in English so that his people could read more of his work. He had his own indigenous agenda behind it. According to him, colonization has taken a new form with the rise of capitalistic mindset, and it is reflected in academic discussions and choice of language. He kept his target audience in his mind, and he made sure that it is not for validation from their dominant group. So research is viewed as a battleground where Western knowledge clashes with indigenous resistance. However, different indigenous groups have different kinds of experiences of being othered. In India, the existence of caste society makes it distinct. Caste society overshadowed the indigenous groups living in India. The experience of being othered in the case of indigenous communities in India has been different. The oppressors were the outsiders, which comprised of different groups in different periods of time. The indigenous communities were facing external as well as internal colonization. The immediate oppressors were the tenants, zamindars, moneylenders, etc., who abided by the rules of the upper caste people predominantly. The resistance of the tribals were first against the local oppressors. The idea of colonization has the connotation of white dominating the other. The relation between the indigenous communities in India and the West was different. It cannot be denied that the white supremacy does not exist and is dominant in the global and local level, even in the form of racism. However, the white people were not as cruel as the local outsiders in the tribal communities in India. The indigenous communities in India have different perspectives related to colonization. Understanding the Adivasi group in India is needed in order to use or formulate a theory which could represent them as the way they are. So, critical ethnographic approach of Ferrier-Elwin, which I have mentioned, I feel that the critical ethnography, which includes critical perspective, social justice, orientation, emphasis on reflexivity, interdisciplinary approach, challenging dominant discourses, participatory action, and mixed methods, qualitative as well as quantitative, is important. The critical analysis delves into the ethical implications of Elwin's work, including issues of informed consent, representation of tribal communities, and potential impact of research on these communities, including potential exploitation or objectification. Elvin's belief in cultural autonomy of tribal communities and the unique value system is profound. Elvin viewed tribal life as distinct civilization with its own terms and references. So, Fuhrer Heimendorf also said that one of his books, The Religion of Indian Tribe, which is the study, a detailed study of Orissa, and this ethnographic attempt on religion and ritual was considered to be the most detailed account of Indian tribal religion that ever flowed from anthropologist lens. This was by Heimendorf, and the concern of material and natural resources of the tribal led to him to address issues such as tribal land, material and natural resources of tribals, and it also included alienation, loss of forest resources, exploitation by non-tribal many leaders and officials. So besides, people claim that Elvin has romanticized tribal a lot, but then there are also instances where he depicted the plight of the Adivasis the way they were. And also Elvin did not follow any framework while he was doing his work, and most of his writings have a literary style and which can be included in as a part of literature, that's what I feel. And also, of course, Elvin advocated on preserving and protecting the uniqueness of tribal identity and culture. He was criticized for his political position on the questions of tribal identity by his counterparts, labeling him as an isolationist who stood in the way of integrating the tribal people into Hindu religious fold. The controversial position that Elvin occupies among the Indian intellectuals and political activists is well known. Few critics severely condemn his work and his standpoint on tribal question with reference to identity. During his tenure in the Northeast region, Elvin's two books entitled A Philosophy for Nifa and A New Deal for Tribal India received wide attention among the reading publics. Nehru's enunciation of the famous tribal Panchsheel carries for year Elvin's signature in his content and argument. I would not get into the disputes related to terminology, identification, and the controversies related to who is indigenous and not. And I would further proceed with the kind of the colonization and its concept, the kind of slavery and atrocities which was found in African countries and Native American people. It is very much different when it comes to Indian colonization. As the tribes living in India, they were mainly placed at the interiors. So when the caste society came in contact with the tribes, the oppression by the upper caste and feudal system made the lives of the tribal miserable. Simultaneously, the Britishers were ruling at the same time, and land demarcation was carried out. Then there came the 5th and 6th schedule, and also the Britishers, of course, they were having the economic control. Proselytizing had always been a controversial topic in the Adivasi context. So when we talk about decolonization, it is getting out of colonial legacy economically, psychologically, as well as academically. It signifies shifting from the periphery to the center because it would help in forming the epistemology of the tribals. And when marginalized occupy the central position, they start defining and redefining the epistemology. However, it becomes a difficult task for them to deal with the methodology because as Linda also says that it is very difficult for the indigenous scholars to deal with the methodology because there's no such methodology which we can use that would be very much appropriate. And also the universalization of belief system, it's becoming highly dangerous. The indigenous people in India are becoming more and more vocal at present with their issues, especially when it comes to, as their issues are being subsumed in minority issues and eventually getting neglected by the administration. So, I mentioned Nehru's ideas were based on Elvin's view on how to deal with the tribes. His experience in India with the tribes focused on understanding with compassion and ethical code of conduct. He viewed tribes as a section of society which was untouched by mainstream and its problems. His idea of assimilation, integration, and isolation was mainly to protect tribes from outsiders, from oppression, and to preserve their world. So Khaka discusses this about assimilation, integration, and isolation in his book State, Society, and Tribes, Issues in Post-Colonial India, while delineating the perception of tribes from different anthropologists. While post-Khaka theory shifts the concept of assimilation, integration, and isolation to adaptation, negotiation, and freedom, the reformation of the concept occurred on the grounds of heterogeneity, discarding unilinear concept of development, Indian modernity, and unilinear concept of colonialism and post-colonialism. It aims at epistemologic stability, which is characterized by resistance and protest by tribals by asserting their rights on forest, water, and land. That's what Bodhi argues. And I would also like to talk about the presence of Eurocentricity in subaltern theory. The theory of oppression and theory of violence is quite relatable when it comes to indigenous people in India. And later the subaltern theory also emerged. It gained popularity. It is a concept rooted in post-colonial studies and is closely associated with the work of Gayatri Spivak. Although it has a broader implication within the field, the term subaltern originally comes from Antonio Gramsci's Marxist theory and referred to the social group who are marginalized, oppressed, and excluded from political and cultural powers. So her essay, Can Subalterns Speak? It somehow overshadowed and also overlooked the interpretation and translation of the life of tribals, which is full of emotions, stories, events, which reflects the way of thinking. The self and other distinction lies in the tension between speaking and being heard. In other words, they cannot speak and subaltern cannot speak is gesturing to impossibility of speech to an audience that refuses to hear and respond to crying out. It is this incomplete transaction that suppresses the subaltern. Indigenous approach to self in literature. So literature, it documents feelings. So Adivasi literature, it also allows the indigenous people to express their perspective, worldviews, experiences. So there are several indigenous scholars as well as writers who has emerged, especially in contemporary period. We see Hansda Sovendra Shekhar, Jacinta Karkata, Mahadev Topo and his works. So they talk about different themes, especially related to land, also memory, trauma, and other things. So this would help in formulating epistemology. That's what I feel, because once they have started documenting, and even the oral literature, it comes into existence, because people basically ask for the legitimacy, authenticity, and I think the more they will write, the epistemology will develop. And of course, land is something which is very common theme, which is seen in the writings of indigenous people, not just in India but also in abroad. Land is extremely significant to indigenous people, and I feel when Professor Khaka said land, human, nature, and supernatural, it's there is this interconnectedness. So I was also going to talk about relational ontology, where it justifies their interconnectedness. So I would just conclude. So the importance of developing a new methodology when it comes to various tribal groups is crucial. Linda Smith has focused on ethical research when it comes to dealing with indigenous communities. This leads to understanding of history of these communities and listening to them. Various indigenous writers across the world have started writing, which gives a new perspective to an existing knowledge system. Many Adivasi communities have started writing down their experiences, which helps in depicting self. This automatically helps the already difficult process of research and developing a new strategy to avoid hegemony. Universalization of knowledge acts as a threat in contextualizing indigenous studies. Critical analysis of insiders as well as outsiders' perspective is significant. Adivasi literature has given a space to indigenous communities in India, which helps in preserving their history, language, and culture. Thank you.
From development studies, then literature to now law.
जोहार, आपकी जय जय आदिवासी। आजाए क्या? ये मेरी भीली बोली है जहां मैं रहता हूं। मैं नर्मदा घाटी से बिलोंग करता हूं। महाराष्ट्र के नंदुरबार डिस्ट्रिक्ट से आता हूं और अभी महाराष्ट्र नेशनल लॉ यूनिवर्सिटी नागपुर में प्रोफेसर हूं। सब पीपीटी थोड़ा थैंक यू ऑर्गेनाइजर, युवा साथी here and all the present here. I am Kailas Wasawe presenting my paper on relevance of customary laws and traditional management system of Adivasis in Maharashtra and its legal aspects. So basically, when we are dealing with the various kinds of the legal aspects which are enshrined in the Indian Constitution as well as various laws which are governing by the constitutional law, बेसिकली यहाँ जब हम बात करते हैं इस पर्टिकुलर पर्सपेक्टिव में, तो क्या कस्टमरी लॉ जो कोडिफाइड नहीं है या फिर सर्टन पीरियड तक हम उसे कोडिफाइड वे में हमारे यहाँ इंडिजिनस प्रैक्टिस जो होती है उसके फॉर्म में हम देखते हैं, इसे हम किस तरह से देखना चाहिए और क्या ये जो ट्रेडिशनल है, ओल्डेस्ट ट्रेडिशन है, उसे हम कैसे जो है ना एक पर्टिकुलर फॉर्म में उसे कोडिफाइड कर सकते हैं या फिर उसका जो प्रैक्टिस है उसमें सिंप्लिसिटी कैसे ला सकते हैं या फिर जो एम्बिग्युइटी है उसे कैसे रिमूव कर सकते हैं। यही इन सारी चीज़ों के ऊपर मैं रिसर्च करता हूं और ये मेरा डोमेन भी है। मैं इससे पहले ऑल ओवर महाराष्ट्र में जो स्टूडेंट मूवमेंट थी उसमें काम भी कर चुका हूं और आदिवासी एकता परिषद हो या फिर बहुत सारे जो आदिवासी मूवमेंट से उससे जुड़ा हुआ हूं। आदिवासी एकता परिषद का युवा अध्यक्ष भी रह चुका हूं और साथ ही साथ इंडिजिनस मामलों पे मैं रिसर्च करता हूं। चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं इस पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में कि कैसे जो है ना ये इंडिजिनस ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम जो है ये आदिवासियों के कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिस के ऊपर कैसे जो है ना डिपेंडेंट है और इसका जो एक जिस्ट है वो मैं शेयर करने वाला हूँ। पूरा का पूरा पेपर रीड आउट करना पॉसिबल नहीं है, लेकिन मैं दो चार चीजें ऐसी जो हैं जो हमारे भील कम्युनिटी जो है नंदुरबार डिस्ट्रिक्ट में वहां कैसे शेयर होती है और उसका जो रिलेवेंस है अगर हम ट्रेस करेंगे कातकरी गोंड हो या फिर माडिया गोंड हो, कोलाम हो या फिर ऐसे अदर ट्रेडिशनल जो भी प्रैक्टिसेस हैं आदिवासियों की महाराष्ट्र में, उसका कैसे रिलेवेंस है। तो आप सब जानते हो कि भारतवर्ष में जितने भी आदिवासी हैं उनकी ट्रेडिशनल और कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिसेस रह चुकी हैं और उसका जो है ना सेल्फ सफिशिएंट एक ट्रेडिशनल जस्टिस डिलीवरी सिस्टम रह चुका है। हम पहले ना कोर्ट जाते थे, ना कोई हमारे यहाँ जो है ना कोई डिलीवरी सिस्टम होता था जस्टिस का। हमारे गांव पंच जो होते थे वो खुद ही हमारे जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होते थे उसे रिजोल्व करने का काम करते थे और उसी के बेस जो है ना इंडिजिनस वे ऑफ अ ट्राइबल ट्रेडिशनल जस्टिस डिलीवरी सिस्टम था। और जिसके बेसिस पर अगर आप देखोगे कि ये जो ट्रेडिशनल प्रैक्टिस का सिस्टम है या फिर कस्टमरी लॉज विच आर गवर्न इन द ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम ऑफ अ ट्राइबल कस्टमरी लॉज या फिर जो रिचुअल्स होते हैं, कस्टम्स होते हैं या फिर हमारे गांव के जो भी देवी देवता हो या फिर हम पहाड़ों को पूजते हैं या फिर डोंगरा देव मानते हैं या फिर ऐसे बहुत सारे जो भी फेस्टिवल्स हैं हमारे, जहां हम कम्युनिटी अगर भील ट्राइब्स में अगर डांस भी करना हो तो है ना लेडीज और जेंट्स जो है दोनों फेरे लगा के ना फेरे डांस होता है हमारे यहाँ। अगर होली या फिर ऐसे फेस्टिवल के बारे में आपने सुना भी होगा तो वहाँ ये सारे डांस जो है ना हम मेन एंड वुमेन जो है ना इक्वालिटी के साथ प्रिवेल करते हैं और ये सारी की सारी जो चीजें हैं आप देख सकते हो ट्राइबल सोसाइटी में। और उन्हीं के बेस अगर आप महाराष्ट्र के जो भी ट्राइबल से उन्हें कनेक्ट करेंगे, अगर आप यहाँ इंट्रोडक्टरी पार्ट में अगर हम देखेंगे कि कैसे जो है ना ट्राइबल कस्टमरी जो भी रिचुअल्स हैं उसका लीगल जो भी इन्फोर्सिबिलिटी है, अगर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल लॉ के पर्सपेक्टिव में देखेंगे तो इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में 5th शेड्यूल में जो भी हमें राइट्स दिए हैं या फिर आर्टिकल 13 का जो भी कस्टमरी लॉ का जो पर्सपेक्टिव है, जो रूढ़िगत ग्राम सभा की जब हम बात करते हैं, ट्रेडिशनल ग्राम सभा की बात करते हैं, उसे हमने कैसे जो है ना इवॉल्व किया है बहुत सारे डॉक्ट्रिन के साथ या फिर बहुत सारे लेजिस्लेशन के साथ। तो ये एक बात थी, लेकिन हम जब बात करते हैं इस पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में कि वेदर पर्टिकुलर नेचुरल वर्शिप जो होती है ट्राइबल की या फिर जो ट्रेडिशनल सस्टेनेबल और इन्वायरमेंट बेस्ड जो एग्रीकल्चर सिस्टम है ट्राइबल का, वो हम देखेंगे या फिर जस्टिस डिलीवरी हो, जस्टिस जेंडर पैरिटी की बात हो या फिर ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट ऑफ कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिसेस की बात हो, ये सारी की सारी जो चीजें हैं ना हमने देखी हैं। और ये जो है ना बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं जो आज कोडिफाइड होना जरूरी है या फिर बहुत बाहरी समाज के सामने आना जरूरी है। और इसी बेस पर अगर आप देखोगे कि बहुत सारी जो है ना, अगर आप देखोगे कि क्रिश्चियनिटी का या फिर हिंदुइज्म का क्या प्रभाव हुआ है, हमारे यहाँ क्रिश्चियनिटी भी बहुत पैमाने पे बढ़ रही थी और हिंदुइज्म का भी तो है ना अभी तो लीगलिज्म और ऐसे मुद्दे भी आ रहे हैं। आप देख रहे हो कि कैसे है ना आदिवासियों को है ना अलग अलग मुद्दों से भटका कर ये सारे के सारे जो उनके जेन्युइन इशू थे, यहाँ पर जैसे ही आदिवासी कस्टमरी लॉस के ऊपर बात करने लगेगा और उनको है ना भटका जाएगा, ये वाली बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जिनके ऊपर अगर हम देखेंगे कि ये जो डिस्टिंक्ट काइंड ऑफ कम्युनिटी प्रैक्टिसेस हैं उसे हम वेल फॉर्म में कैसे प्रेजेंट करेंगे, ये सारी चीजें हैं। और इस पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में अगर महाराष्ट्र की बात करेंगे तो महाराष्ट्र में सबसे ज्यादा जो है ना ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन है अगर आज के भारतवर्ष की बात करेंगे। और इन पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में अगर हम बात करेंगे तो शेड्यूल टाइप की जो ऑर्डर थी 1915 में प्रोड्यूस किया था, उसके बाद अमेंडमेंट हुआ था 1976 में, और उसके बाद अगर आप देखोगे तो शुरू में महाराष्ट्र में 47 ट्राइबल कम्युनिटीज थी, उसके बहुत सारे सब कम्युनिटीज भी हैं। उसमें अगर आप देखोगे तो आंध है, भील हैं, या फिर गोंड हो, वारली हो, कोलाम हो, पारदी हो, महादेव, कोड़ी महादेव हो, ये ऐसी बहुत सारी कम्युनिटीज हैं महाराष्ट्र में जो अपना खुद का कल्चरल और जो है ना, इनके अलावा देखो भीलों में क्या है कि मैं जिस पर्टिकुलर पहाड़ी एरिया से आता हूँ वहां है ना मेरी खुद की अलग बोली है। अगर हम भीलों को डिवाइड करेंगे नंदुरबार के तो उसमें ना 8-10 ऐसी सब कम्युनिटी मिल जाएगी जिसमें है ना डिफरेंट लैंग्वेज होता है, या फिर जो है ना एक सिमिलर प्रैक्टिस तो होती है लेकिन उनकी लैंग्वेज डिफरेंट होगी, उनका जो है ना रहन सहन का थोड़ा सा तरीका अलग होगा, उनके जो भी आभूषण होंगे, दान दागिने की बात कर ले या फिर कोई भी ट्रेडिशनल प्रैक्टिस की बात होगी, थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस होगा। लेकिन सिमिलरिटी क्या होगी कि सिमिलरिटी जो है ना उनके ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम के रिलेटेड होगी, या फिर अगर आप बात करोगे इन पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में कि उनके जो भी प्रैक्टिसेस है वो कैसे होंगे, और इन्हीं के बेस पर अगर आप इस पर्टिकुलर डोमेन को ट्रेस करोगे कि कैसे शेड्यूल टाइप की जो है ना इंडिजिनस ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम थी उसे हम ट्रेस करेंगे। और अगर बात करेंगे कि ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम दिस इज नथिंग बट एन वे ऑफ इंडिजिनस लाइफ, और ये जो ना हम सदियों से करते आ रहे हैं, प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं। और इन्हीं पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में अगर आप देखोगे कि दिस इज नथिंग बट एन सेल्फ सस्टेन्ड और सेल्फ सफिशिएंट सिस्टम ऑफ कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिसेस, और ये जो सिस्टम है यहाँ कोई भी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होता। अगर आप देखोगे कि बहुत बार क्या है कि इन्वायरमेंट को है ना अपने खुद के बेनिफिट के लिए ह्यूमन काइंड आज जिस तरह से ये जो बहुत सारे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट आ रहे हैं इन्वायरमेंट और ह्यूमन क्राइसिस रिलेटेड, तो वहां जो ना हम ना तो इन्वायरमेंट को है ना ज्यादा धोखा देने की कोशिश करेंगे या फिर उसमें डिस्क्रिमिनेट करेंगे। हम जितना है ना खुद को बचाते हैं उतना इन्वायरमेंट को बचाने की कोशिश करते हैं। और ये सारी की सारी जो है ना फिलोसॉफिकल जो बैकग्राउंड है ये ट्राइबल्स में पाया जाता है। और ये सारी की सारी जो चीजें हैं महाराष्ट्र की जितने भी कम्युनिटीज हैं, अगर आप पालघर की बात करोगे, वहाँ की कम्युनिटीज की बात करोगे, नंदुरबार या फिर जो है ना नासिक एरियाज के भीलों की बात करोगे, या फिर जो जिस जहाँ से देवजी तोहफा सर आते हैं वहां की बात करोगे, माडिया गोंड की, तो यहाँ ये ट्रेडिशनल प्रैक्टिस की सिस्टम जो है ये है और ये रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट के बेस्ड हैं। और इन्हीं के रिलेटेड अगर आप इसका रिकॉग्निशन देखोगे तो ये जो ट्रेडिशनल रिकॉग्निशन जो है These kinds of a traditional management system of indigenous tribals or the Adivasis are recognized in various form। और अगर आप आर्टिकल 13(3) की बात करोगे, आज बहुत बार क्या होता है कि 5th शेड्यूल और 6th शेड्यूल के बेसिस पे हमें जो है ना इंडिजिनस वे ऑफ लाइफ का जो है ना एक स्ट्रक्चर मिला है। अगर आप आर्टिकल 13(3) में अगर क्लॉज 3 में देखोगे कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिस के बेसिस पर, तो वहां जो है ना जो भी आपकी कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिसेस है, रिचुअल्स हैं, उसे हमने रिकॉग्नाइज तो किया है, लेकिन जब वो कब तक जो है ना प्रिवेल करेंगे ट्राइबल सोसाइटी में, जब तक वो जो है ना कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी नहीं होते पार्ट 3 या फिर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल लॉ के। तो ये एक चीज जो है ना ये मद्देनजर अगर आप किसी भी चीज को ट्रेस करोगे तो हमारे कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिस जो है ना वेल रिकॉग्नाइज है। इनके अलावा आप सेक्शन 39 को जो इक्विटेबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ वेल्थ की बात होती है, या फिर जो है ना इक्विटेबल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन होना चाहिए मटेरियल रिसोर्स का, इसके रिलेटेड भी आप देख सकते हो। इन्हीं पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में अगर आप देखोगे 5th या फिर 6th शेड्यूल में, जहां है ना बहुत सारी ट्राइबल ऑटोनॉमस जो ना ऑटोनॉमी है या फिर सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन हो या फिर इंडिजिनस वे ऑफ लाइफ हो, उसे प्रोटेक्ट करने की कोशिश करी गई है। और ये सारी की सारी जो चीजें हैं अगर आप पैसा में रिफ्लेक्ट करोगे तो बहुत सारी मिनिमम जो चीजें हैं पैसा में है, लेकिन अगर आप बहुत सारी चीजें देखोगे 5th शेड्यूल का जो कीस्ट है अगर आप उसे देखोगे अच्छे से, तो उसमें ना बहुत सारी जो ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम है उसको आप फोकस कर सकते हो। उसका है ना बहुत सारे जो इनइक्वालिटीज हैं जो प्रिवेल हो रही है सोसाइटी में, उसे रिमूव करने के लिए हमने एट्रोसिटी एक्ट लाया था। उसमें भी बहुत सारे ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट या फिर जो जात पंचायत हो या फिर आपको एक्सक्लूड कर देते हो, तो ऐसी चीजों में ट्राइबल को प्रोटेक्शन रिलेटेड जो है ना बहुत सारे लॉज हमारे यहाँ है। और इन्हीं के बेसिस पर अगर आप देखोगे ट्राइबल ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम को, तो ये जो भी प्रैक्टिस है महाराष्ट्र में, जिसके बेसिस पर ये सारे के सारे अजम्पशन में रख रहा हूँ, या फिर एक जो सेटअप प्रैक्टिस है, मैं महाराष्ट्र के नंदुरबार डिस्ट्रिक्ट के भील्स के बारे में बात करूंगा। और यहाँ जो भी भील कम्युनिटी हैं अगर उनका नेचर सस्टेनेबिलिटी के बेसिस पे देखोगे या फिर कम्युनिटी स्टैंडर्ड जो है वहाँ के जो भी फेस्टिवल्स हैं या फिर वहाँ का जो भी कोहैबिटेशन विद द नेचर का कंसेप्ट है, सस्टेनेबल एग्रीकल्चर पैटर्न है या फिर यूज ऑफ लैंड का जो पैटर्न है, लैंड टेन्योर का पैटर्न है, और इन्हीं के बेसिस पे जो भी क्या है कि हम जो है ना नेसेसिएट जो है जितना हमें फॉरेस्ट से या फिर जो है ना लैंड से या फिर पानी से जितना भी हमें हमारे लिए जो भी चाहिए उतनी जितने हमें नेसेसिटी है उतना ही हम यूज करेंगे, और बाकी जो है ना ये डाइवर्सिटी के लिए जो है ना हम छोड़ देंगे, उसे हम प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे, इक्वली प्रिजर्व भी करेंगे। ये सारी की सारी जो चीजें हैं इन्हीं के बेसिस पे होती है। और इसीलिए जब मैं बात करता हूँ नंदुरबार डिस्ट्रिक्ट के भील ट्राइब्स की, उसमें जो है ना बहुत सारे भील्स तो आते हैं, उसमें बहुत सारी बोली भाषाएं भी आती हैं, जिसमें अगर आप बात करोगे देहवाली की, नोयरी, पहाड़ी, ढानका, भीली, माउची, कोटली, ऐसी बहुत सारी जो ना एक ही डिस्ट्रिक्ट में कम से कम है ना 12 से 15 जो बोली भाषाएं वो बोली जाती है। और इसमें अगर ट्राइबल सब कम्युनिटीज की बात करेंगे तो वो सारी चीजें दिखाई जाती है। और इन्हीं के पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में अगर आप देखोगे कि क्या कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिस और ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम जो है इंडिजिनस पीपल का वो क्या है, तो ये जो चीज है कि इफ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रिजोल्यूशन जो है कि ट्राइबल में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कैसे रिजोल्व किए जाते थे, हमारे यहाँ क्या है कि गांव पंच की कंसेप्ट है। वो गांव पंच क्या करते हैं, कोई भी डिस्प्यूट आएगा तो उसके ऊपर जो है ना हम सारा गांव बैठेगा, उसमें कम्युनिटी जो मीडिएशन का कंसेप्ट है या फिर बहुत सारे ऐसे जो ना जस्टिस डिलीवरी सिस्टम का जो कंसेप्ट है उनके बेसिस पे दोनों पार्टीज को इक्वली जो है ना अपॉर्चुनिटी दी जाएगी, और उन्हीं के बेसिस पे जो भी मैटर है सारे गांव के सामने सुलझाया जाएगा। और उसके बाद है ना जो भी अगर मान लो किसी को पनिशमेंट भी करनी है तो वो जो है ना इन फॉर्म ऑफ वेरियस काइंड्स ऑफ जो भी पनिशमेंट होती है वो होती है। और उनमें जो ना आप मान लो कि एक अल्कोहल का जो ना एक पैक दे के भी वो मैटर सॉल्व कर सकते हो, या फिर आप शरबत दे के भी सॉल्व कर सकते हो, या फिर महुआ का पत्ता दे के भी आप सॉल्व कर सकते हो, या फिर जो झगड़ा मोड़ करने की बात होती है उसमें ना हम दो जो ना लकड़ी लेते हैं उसे जो ना तोड़ देते हैं, तो जैसे ही वो लकड़ी तोड़ देते हैं वो झगड़ा हमारा खत्म हो गया, रिजोल्व हो गया। ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम आज भी हमारे यहाँ भीलों में पाई जाती है। दूसरी जो चीज है कि मैरिज, रीमैरिज या फिर डिवोर्स, ये जो कंसेप्ट है आज भी अगर पर्सनल लॉस की बात करेंगे तो बाकी लोगों के लिए तो हिंदू मैरिज है या फिर ऐसे बहुत सारे पर्सनल लॉ हैं, ट्राइबल कैसे फॉलो करता है। तो हमारे यहाँ जो है ना अगर कोई भी पार्टनर, लाइफ पार्टनर अगर चूज करना हो तो उसमें भी ये सारी की सारी जो है ना पैरिटी दिखाई देती है, दोनों को है ना इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी दी जाएगी। वो खुद का पार्टनर जो है उसे किसके साथ कोहैबिट करना है या फिर किसके साथ मैरिज करना है, ये जो ऑटोनॉमी है ये दी जाती है। और साथ ही साथ रीमैरिज जो है ट्राइबल में होता है, और विडो मैरिज हो या फिर जो है ना डाइवोर्स की कंसेप्ट भी है। अगर मान लो किसी के साथ जमती नहीं है, और हाँ ट्राइबल में क्या है कि दहेज जो है हम जो है ना अगर मैं वधू हूँ, वर हूँ, तो मैं वधू के पिता को या फिर पूरे गांव को है ना दहेज दूंगा, और वो किस फॉर्म में होगा, अल्कोहल जो है ना एक हंडा जो है ना दारू हम दे देंगे पूरे गांव वालों को कि ये जो है ना इन दोनों लड़के लड़कियों की शादी हो रही है, उनके बिहाफ पे पूरा गांव जो है अगर कल अगर इनमें कोई डिस्प्यूट आ जाता हो शादी में, तो इसे फिर से हमारे यहाँ ये दायित्व होगा कि इसे रिजोल्व करने का भी हम काम करेंगे। तो सारे लोग जो है वहाँ धान का जो है ना एक्सचेंज होगा, हम जो है ना रोटी बेटी अगर करेंगे तो वहाँ पूरा का पूरा विलेज होगा, वहाँ छोटे लड़कों से लेकर है ना बुजुर्ग तक ये पता होगा कि इनकी शादी या फिर ये जो लड़की है हमने उस गांव में ब्याह दी है या फिर उनकी शादी वहां हो गई है। तो ये जो मैरिज रीमैरिज की जो कंसेप्ट है, अगर मैरिज अगर रिजोल्व नहीं होते हैं, मान लो वो टिक नहीं पाते, तो ऐसी चीजों में रीमैरिज की कंसेप्ट भी है। और जो दहेज जो है ना विडोज या फिर जो भी वधू को देते हैं उससे जो है ना रिकवर करने के भी अलग अलग तरीके हैं, उसमें भी बहुत ज्यादा जो है ना जेंडर इंक्लूसिविटी का जो कंसेप्ट है वो है। देखो अगर आप देखोगे बाकी अन्य समाज में तो उसमें ये कॉन्सेप्ट भी है ना बहुत है। ट्रेडिशनल कॉन्सेप्ट अगर देखोगे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का, आदिवासियों में पहले तो है ना प्रॉपर्टी की कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं थी। प्रॉपर्टी का कॉन्सेप्ट में जब मेरे जो परदादा हैं उनसे मैं पूछता था कि आप कौन सी चीजें जो है ना बाजार से जो है ना खरीद के लाते थे, उसमें साल की एक ऐसी चीज थी जो हम है ना बाहर से खरीद लाते थे, क्योंकि हमारे गांव से ना समुद्र दूर है, तो हम साल की एक ऐसी चीज थी जो 1970 तक जो ना हम खरीद पाते थे, और इन्हीं के बेस ये ट्रेडिशनल सिस्टम था। और ये एक जो चीज है प्रॉपर्टी और इनहेरिटेंस की जो कंसेप्ट है, हम जो है ना सारा का सारा नेचर हमें जो है ना फीड करता है, तो उसे प्रोटेक्ट करना, प्रिजर्व करना ये हमारा दायित्व है। और इन्हीं के बेस जो है ना हम सारी की सारी चीजें जो है ना अपलिफ्ट करेंगे, प्रिजर्व करेंगे, प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे। और इनहेरिटेंस का जो कंसेप्ट है सक्सेशन या फिर ये अन्य राइट का, तो पहले तो प्रॉपर्टी का कंसेप्ट ही नहीं था, कम्युनिटी रिसोर्स होते थे और उस पर्टिकुलर ट्रेडिशनल सिस्टम के बेसिस पे होते थे। तो अभी जो अगर मान लो कोई डॉटर जो है पेरेंट के अगर सक्सेशन राइट को अगर क्लेम करते हो तो वो इक्वल शेयर में दिया जाता है। लेकिन अभी कमला नीति का जो जजमेंट आया है कि वेदर पर्टिकुलर हिंदू सक्सेशन एक्ट और हिंदू मैरिज एक्ट का जो सेक्शन 2C है वो एप्लीकेबल होना चाहिए कि नहीं ट्राइबल के लिए, उसके ऊपर भी एक डिस्कोर्स चल रहा है। तो उसे भी हमें देखना चाहिए कि वेदर पर्टिकुलर इनहेरिटेंस राइट और सक्सेशन राइट कैन बी इक्वली कोडिफाइड इन द ट्राइबल सोसाइटी और नॉट। एंड इफ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द ट्रेडिशनल प्रैक्टिस सिस्टम, क्या है कि मछलियां पकड़ने के लिए भी ना हमारे यहाँ ट्रेडिशनल सिस्टम होता था बोने, या फिर जो ना मछली जब चढ़ती है तो उसके लिए जो ना हम एक धबधबा क्रिएट करेंगे, उससे जो मछली चढ़ेगी उसके लिए जो ना मूड़े या फिर ऐसे जो ना बहुत सारे ट्रेडिशनल सिस्टम थे जो कल आपने पिक्चर देखी थी वैसे हम यूज करते हैं। और ऐसी बहुत सारे ट्रेडिशनल फार्मिंग की कंसेप्ट हैं जो ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम है जिसके बेस पर ये सारी चीजें होती थी। अगर आप फॉरेस्ट मैनेजमेंट के बेसिस पे देखोगे तो हम एक प्रेयर भी गाते हैं कि नाय भूले जी हम धरती आपके लिए नाय भूले जी, क्योंकि ये धरती हमारी माता है, जो हमें मिलता है उसी से। लास्ट में मैं कंक्लूड करना चाहूंगा कि जो ट्रेडिशनल कस्टमरी प्रैक्टिसेस हैं या फिर ट्रेडिशनल वे ऑफ इंडिजिनस लाइफ है उसे कोडिफाइड करने के लिए हमें जो ना एक रिसर्च या फिर जो एक इंडिजिनस वे है उसे हम कैसे लॉ में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं और कैसे जो ना आइडियल लेजिस्लेशन हो सकते हैं उसके ऊपर हम काम कर रहे हैं और उसके ऊपर काम होना जरूरी है, ये मेरा मानना है। उसी के बेस आप सारे लोग जो हैं इस पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में सोचें और इसके ऊपर हमें गौर विचार करना चाहिए, ये मेरा मानना है। थैंक यू ऑर्गेनाइजर, थैंक यू काका सर। काका सर को तो मैं पिछले 5 साल से पढ़ रहा था, आज जो ना इनके साथ डाइस चेयर कर रहा हूँ, ये मेरे लिए गर्व की बात है। और ISI और इन सारे इंस्टीट्यूट का मैं बहुत तहे दिल से शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि उन्होंने मुझे मौका दिया और मेरे विचार को साझा करने का, और आपने सुना, इसलिए धन्यवाद। आपकी जय आदिवासी।
लॉन्गशिम जैसे धुमकुड़िया जिसके बारे में हमने सुबह बात की थी, उसके वो सेम थांगकुल नागास के बीच में पाई जाती है। और इसका किस तरह से खात्मा, किस तरह से इसका विनाश है, उसके बारे में इन्होंने बताया। यहाँ थांगकुल नागा आज के समय में 100% ईसाई हो चुके हैं। और ये एक ऐसी कम्युनिटी है जहाँ ईसाई मिशनरियों के आने के बाद काफ़ी चीज़ें, जब वो ईसाईयत का प्रचार कर रहे थे तो जो ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज था, जो जिस तरीके से उनकी संस्कृति थी, उसको उन्होंने ख़त्म किया। वो इस तरीके से कि यहाँ पर आमना सामना हुआ पश्चिमी शिक्षा प्रणाली की और जो ट्रेडिशनल सांस्कृतिक इनके जो कल्चर थे उसका। जैसे कि राइस, जिसको हम खड़िया कहते हैं, तांकुल नागास के कल्चर में भी राइस बियर होता था। तो ईसाइयों ने उसको एक बहुत ही क्लियरली मना किया और कहा कि अगर इसका सेवन करते हैं तो आप नरक में जाएंगे। उसी तरीके से एक निजीकरण देखा गया फैमिली सिस्टम में। तांकुल नागा मानते हैं कि पूरे गांव की जरूरत होती है एक बच्चे के बढ़ने और उसका सुचारू रूप से जीवन चलने के लिए। लेकिन इस तरीके के एजुकेशन सिस्टम से बच्चा इकलौता हो जाता है सिर्फ, और वो उनके माता पिता की बस जिम्मेदारी हो जाती है कि वो किस तरीके से आगे पले बढ़े। इन्होंने हमें ये भी बताया कि ये जो वेस्टर्न एजुकेशन सिस्टम था ईसाईयत के आने के बाद, उससे तांकुल नागास का एक मानसिक कब्जा भी हुआ, क्योंकि इनकी जो राइटिंग, इनका जो तरीका था डायलॉग करने का, वार्तालाप करने का, वो मौखिक था। अब ये लिखित हो गया तो इन्होंने उसको एक टर्म दिया है अंधकार युग। जब तांकुल नागास की सोचने और समझने, आत्मचिंतन करने की शक्ति थोड़ी कम हो गई थी, क्योंकि वो मौखिक रूप से वार्तालाप करते थे, अब लिखित में आने में थोड़ा सा समय लग रहा था। तो इसको इन्होंने बताया कि इस युग को वो अंधकार युग कहते हैं। जो नेक्स्ट पेपर था स्नेहा के द्वारा, उन्होंने आदिवासी रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी, जो कि लिंडा स्मिथ जी की किताब है, उसके बारे में बहुत अच्छे तरीके से बताया। और ये कि जब एक शोध प्रक्रिया जो आदिवासियों के लिए नहीं है, लेकिन जब लोग आते हैं आदिवासियों पर रिसर्च करने के लिए, शोध करने के लिए, तो वो जो प्रक्रिया जो ऑलरेडी बनी हुई है, उस नजरिए से अगर वो आदिवासियों को देखते हैं तो थोड़ा सा उसमें परेशानी होती है। और उन्होंने 2-3 प्रॉब्लम्स को हमारे सामने बताया कि किस तरीके से वो रोमांटिसाइज, ऑब्जेक्टिफाई, आदिवासियों को एक वस्तु की तरह देखते हैं और बहुत आकर्षित होकर उसकी तरफ आते हैं ना, और ये एक प्रॉब्लम की तरह है। और यहाँ पर भी उन्होंने यही बताया कि वेस्टर्न नॉलेज और ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज में एक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होता है, और जो रिसर्चर्स होते हैं वो एक पूर्वाग्रह से आते हैं, जो कि एक रिसर्च करने के लिए बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है। इन्होंने 2 सुझाव दिए, जो कि लिंडा स्मिथ जी अपने किताब में भी कहती हैं कि एथिकल रिसर्च जो मौलिक शोध होता है, जिसमें से मौलिक शोध करने का तरीका जिससे कि हम आदिवासियों की हिस्ट्री को समझ सकते हैं, उनके इतिहास को समझ सकते हैं, और दूसरा चीज कि आदिवासियों का अपने इतिहास को खुद से लिखने की जो जरूरत, उसको भी इन्होंने इस बात पर जोड़ किया। That's it. Over to you, moderator, for the session.
So we have these 3 presentations for your comments, your observations, questions. So it's open.
अभी हम लोगों ने वेरियस टाइप के ट्राइब्स के विषय में सुना है। मैरिज में शादी, क्या हम लोग, आप जितने भी ट्राइब्स हैं और इसमें जितने भी ट्राइब्स के जो जनजातियां हैं, विभिन्न प्रकार की जातियां हैं, उनमें क्या इंटरकास्ट मैरिज, क्या हमारा समाज हमारा सोसाइटी अलाउ करता है कि नहीं, हमारा सोसाइटी अलाउ करता है कि नहीं, और करता है तो किस प्रकार से हम लोग।
My question is for Sneha. I liked your presentation on the methodological alternative part. My question was that how would you, is it to do with the broad generalizing of Adivasi studies, or are you trying to contextualize that?
Very interesting. But are you also proposing a unique tribal methodology which is different from other methodologies, ensuring objectivity, scientificity, etc.? So how are you going to negotiate? Thank you.
My question is also for Sneha. When for alternative methodology for indigenous community, but when it comes as a researcher, when we do interviews.
Yeah, both of them. Either one of. अच्छा, yeah, अच्छा.
मेरा प्रश्न जो है कि जो गवर्नमेंट जो स्कीम है हमारे यहाँ, कुंवर भाई मामेरू और वाली दिकरी दोनों में मैरिज स्टडी का वो डॉक्यूमेंट जरूरी है, और हमारे यहाँ ये है कि जो रस्म है वो लड़की के घर वाले और लड़के के घर वाले दोनों जाते हैं और धन लेके और देके वो रस्म पूरी की जाती है इसमें। और जब ये स्कीम है यहाँ जो शादी करते हैं उनको 5,000 का मुआवजा दिया जाता है और वाले दिगरे में 1 लाख का मुआवजा दिया जाता है। तो दोनों में मैरिज सर्टिफिकेट वो है डॉक्यूमेंट फर्ज जाते हैं, तो इजीली अवेलेबल हो जाए। और ये योजना में ग्राम पंचायत का ठहराव या ऐसा कोई लॉ हो सकता है क्या?
Mahir now, right? So in your slides, you have highlight of your presentation and that being identified there. Secondly, since rice beer, as we know, rice beer has other aspects to it, like it is there in our culture. It's good sides to it also, and maybe. So I think this is where we can get a dormitory, because that is not a dormitory.
There's one more, and then we'll take up. If there's a later on, I think let them just ask. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't say you.
This question for Sokai, very well presented, and you have problematized the thing about and is there any way to revive back these practices? If you want to revive back, how is it possible? That's my question.
Yeah.
So, like, on the personal, this conflict that is there, if you have done that in your study as well.
The last one, yeah. This. हाँ, कहाँ भी है, इधर भी है. आके इधर नहीं जाती है ना, सीधा भी बस.
So, my question is not specifically to one person. I think anyone could take up that. So all of the presentations were really nice. I just wanted to know the views of you guys, particularly about the aspect of, you know how a lot of our traditions, they are not codified or written somewhere. They are mere oral traditions. And a lot of the people in our community, they might not know the language, Hindi or English, right? The mainstream languages that are used in scholarship. So that is one aspect, and the second aspect is of students who are, you know, first generation learners, who might not be much aware of, you know, scholarship. So how do you think of accommodating their perspectives into, you know, research and methodology? So that's that.
Yeah, this side, and then we'll. There is anyone else after that? Okay, this is the last one.
My question is to Kailash sir. आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह से जो बात कही कस्टमाइज लॉज एंड ट्रेडिशनल सिस्टम जो प्रैक्टिसेस होती है आपके व्हील ट्राइब्स में, तो फिर ये सवाल है, फिर आपने कुछ मेंशन किया लैंड इनहेरिटेंस अमंग वुमेन आफ्टर विडोड, तो जैसा आपने कहा कि अगर वो विडो है तो फिर जब आती है दोबारा अपने घर पे तो उनको इक्वल शेयर मिलता है, तो मुझे लगता है शायद ऐसा नहीं है, मतलब जहाँ तक मैं मुझे जहाँ तक नॉलेज है, मतलब जहाँ तक मैं स्पेशली जो छोटा नागपुर रीजन और जो संताल परगना रीजन वहाँ पे उनको इक्वल शेयर नहीं मिलती है, तो फिर आपने जो कहा यूसीसी के, तो बहुत लोग का ये है कि अगर हम क्लेम करें अकॉर्डिंग टू यूसीसी तो हमें मिल सकती है इक्वल लैंड, तो उस पर आपका कुछ अगर
So we'll start with 5 minutes. Or you want to go?
Thank you for the question. So here, if we the connection of rice beer and the annihilation of Longshin, if we trace that, then it's in the introduction of let's say Christianity. So like in order to enhance or to speed up the propagation of Christianity, they have to solve certain cultural events and consumption of rice beer. And in the article, I've also argued that in almost all the literatures where I've come across, so we've argued that consumption of rice beer is recreational or is something to do with culture, tradition, and all that sort. But what we've not considered is, if we look at the culture or the climatic weather condition of that time, a century ago, especially in the Northeast, say in my hometown, even today, in summer, the maximum temperature is up to 30 degrees Celsius. And in winters, it goes down to -10, something like that. So in that kind of situation, also a century ago, like consumption of rice beer must have been a very practical and a very intelligent way of regulating the thermal or body regulation, heat regulation. So, and to have the next question, to have a name for that I don't know how whether it will be visible, but here I've described it as cultural institution, social institution, and also political institution and educational institution. And here the main emphasis here is on the educational institution. So in the sense, I tried to divide the educational into two. That is, one is educative and the other is pedagogical. So here, according to Geoffrey, pedagogy is something it's directed and also goal-oriented. Educative is with no goals, but it is to keep wisdom. So here, and I find that Longshin, Guria Morum,
is also a sort of an education where not only education per se is imparted, but it also teaches you a lot on not just the social needs of the time, but also a lot more on the thing. Honoring your question, if we look at the challenges and to revive, I think to revive, it would be, in my opinion, it's sort of challenging. But then what I would want to take from here is the idea of it and the dialogicality of that, the way we interact, the way we communicate. In some cases, it's become didactic in the sense, one, there's an unequal power relations, and where one is teaching the other. Here, it's not like that. The power relations is either zero or seldom exercised, but then the dialogicality of it, where people are on equal footings, and where they interact, and where interaction epistemology is according to Ivana Markova. That if that comes out, yeah.
Hello. So thank you for the questions. So the first question regarding generalization of Adivasi methodology or conceptualizing around right. So I'm not saying that I'm generalizing the whole methodology itself. So when I'm talking about decolonizing methodology, so first we have to understand the concept of India. It's a huge concept on, the definition of history itself and to acknowledge the history of different people. It's not generalization per se, but then yeah, there are similarities as well as differences when it comes to different tribes. Within India as well as, when we compare tribes in India and around the world. And unique methodology, so I'm not, there is a need to develop a new methodology. So it's not been developed yet. There is a limit to which we can, apply theories as well. Like for example, Foucault's theory, power and knowledge. So how far can we apply if we are reading a text? There is a limit to which we can apply Foucault or Derrida or others, theorists. So it is also because the indigenous people in India, they have been different. They are different from other indigenous people around the world. So this difference has to be acknowledged and we cannot universalize. So yeah, there is a need to develop a different indigenous methodology so that would negotiate, different aspects. So regarding interview per se, yeah, when we go for the interview, so since I am coming from a tribal background, but I got education from I got Western education. Okay, so I myself have insider as well as outsider's perspective. So whatever knowledge that I have taken, and if I'm going to a village, having that concept and perception in my mind, so there is this outsider thing which might influence the way of taking interviews as well. There would be a tendency of applying my thoughts, or there would be a chance that the person whom I am interviewing, just to make me feel happy, he would or she would say, give me the exact answer which I would want. So there is this gap, and one needs to understand the position of a person. And also there is this thing, like if the other person wants to be researched at all, because there has been instances like people go to a field work and then they do interview, they have done all the research. So the thing is, whatever you have done the research, will it go to that person who have also given the interview? So they don't get that thing, like what is the outcome. I think that there should be give and take thing which should happen, because a lot of time this happens that a person who has given the interview, okay, he would never get your book or never get access to your article, what you have written about them. So this thing has to be taken into account, whether the person wants to be researched and how how much comfortable will they be? And me as a researcher or anybody as a researcher, they have to take this thing into consideration, your education and your own perspective, so that you won't impose those things, subconsciously. And
तो इंटरकास्ट मैरिज के बहुत सारे रिफ्लेक्शंस भी होते हैं, जैसे कि अगर आप इंटरकास्ट मैरिज नहीं करने देंगे तो उसका जो ना राइट टू फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच एंड एक्सप्रेशन और उसके ऊपर वॉयलेशन आ जाएगा लड़की के लिए, ये एक बात है। लेकिन दूसरी बात ये है कि देयर आर सर्टेन काइंड्स ऑफ लॉ इन महाराष्ट्र एज वेल एज बंगाल की बात करोगे या फिर बहुत सारी जगह की, देयर इज अ रिस्ट्रिक्शन ऑन ट्रांसफर ऑफ अ ट्राइबल लैंड टू नॉन ट्राइबल। तो उसके डोमेन में अगर आप देखोगे कि नॉन ट्राइबल गर्ल अगर किसी नॉन ट्राइबल से मैरी करती है तो उसका जो लैंड ट्रांसफर का जो भी डोमेन है वो क्या करते हैं कि वाइफ के नाम से लैंड लेते हैं। और ऐसे जो है ना बहुत सारे इंस्टेंसेस है महाराष्ट्र का, अगर आप बॉम्बे देखा होगा तो वहां जो है ना बहुत सारी जो थाना या फिर पालघर की बहुत सारी लैंड थी ना, वो नॉन ट्राइबल्स ने ना कहा फुसला करे ना आदिवासी लड़कियों से शादी की हो, फिर जो ना उनका लैंड जो है वो उन्होंने इनडायरेक्टली जो ना इनहेरिट कर लिया, फिर वो 7/12 पे आ जाता है। उसके बाद जो है ना उसे फिर से ना रीइंस्टेट करना या फिर जो ना ट्राइबल को फिर से ये करना, ये जो ना इम्पॉसिबल हो जाता है। तो उसके ऊपर भी है ना एक कोडिफाइड अगर हम कर देते हैं कि इंटरकास्ट मैरिज जो है ना किस हद तक पॉसिबल है। लेकिन इसके बाद अगर आपको सोचना पड़ेगा कि मधुकिश्वर या फिर जो है ना ये सूर्यमणि कुजूर का जो जजमेंट आया है उसमें भी है ना ट्राइबल लॉ का इम्प्लीकेशन जो है इनहेरिटेंस या फिर जो ना सक्सेशन राइट के ऊपर हम बात करते हैं तो उसके ऊपर भी बहुत सारे इम्पैक्ट हो सकते हैं। तो पर्सनल राइट की बात करेंगे ट्राइबल वुमेन की, तो उनको डोमेन तो मिलता है कि वो फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच एंड एक्सप्रेशन जो एक्सरसाइज करेगी, लेकिन इसका इम्पैक्ट जो है ट्राइबल कस्टमरी लॉज पे होता है जो नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट के तहत हमें देखना चाहिए, ये एक बात है। दूसरी जो चीज है पैसा, जो भी ग्राम सभा होती है जहाँ जो भी मैरिज होते हैं, अभी तक मेरा मैरिज जो है वो ना तो मैंने ग्राम पंचायत में रजिस्टर किया है ना ही जो है ना अभी तक मैंने जो है ना उसका कोई भी कोर्ट मैरिज किया है। लेकिन हमारे ट्रेडिशनल में ये जो है ना मेरा मैरिज हो चुका है, ये पूरे गांव वालों को दोनों साइड्स को पता है। तो ये जो है ना जनरली जब बात आती है ऐसे सर्टिफिकेट की तो आपको है ना पैसा ग्राम सभा में अगर आप मान लो उनको रिकॉग्नाइज कर देते हो और मैरिज का रजिस्ट्रेशन करवा देते हो तो वहां से सर्टिफिकेट मिलने में आसानी हो जाएगी। या फिर मुखिया या फिर पटेल जो होते हैं वो भी अगर सर्टिफिकेशन दे देते हैं कि इनका जो है ना ट्राइबल रिचुअल के साथ मैरिज हो चुका है। तो ऐसी चीजों में मुझे जो बात है बहुत क्रिटिसाइज हो रहा है या फिर जो डिबेटेबल इशू है जो यूसीसी के ऊपर, उस पर मैं अभी भी रिसर्च कर रहा हूँ। और जो भी इनहेरिटेंस, सक्सेशन और ट्राइबल मैरिजेस की बात होती है और ट्राइबल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट की जो बात होती है कस्टमरी लॉज के बेसिस पे, जिनका है ना बहुत सारा नेगेटिव इंपैक्ट होने वाला है अगर आप यूसीसी लाते हो तो मैं यूसीसी के अगेंस्ट हूँ। और उसके जो है ना मेरे पास बहुत सारे स्पेसिफिकेशन है कि किस लिए जो है ना ट्राइबल यूसीसी के अगेंस्ट होना चाहिए। और इसके बेसिस पे ना अगर आप ट्राइबल लॉ कोडिफाइड नहीं करोगे, लेकिन कोडिफाइड करोगे तो भिल्लों का अलग होगा या फिर आप किसी और पर्टिकुलर रीजन में जाओगे तो उनका अलग होगा, तो उसे जो ना आप सिमिलर तो नहीं कर सकते। लेकिन ये जो आपको ग्राम सभा राइट देती है पैसा एक्ट के द्वारा या फिर फिफ्थ शेड्यूल के द्वारा, तो उसे जो ना आप आपके एरिया के लिए कोडिफाइड करके रख दो कि अगर मान लो मैरिज होगा तो ऐसे होगा, उनका जो सक्सेशन राइट है ऐसे गवर्न करेगा। और ये सारी की सारी चीजें है ना ये आपको लेजिस्लेशन बनाने के पावर अगर मिलते हैं तो वहां से हो सकती है। अगर हम बात करेंगे ट्रेडिशनल जो है ना कोडिफाइड लॉज की और उसका जो है ना न्यू जनरेशन जो है उसे कैसे इंप्लीमेंट करेगी। जब मैं इनिशियली पढ़ रहा था पुणे में, मैं जब गया था तो मुझे ना आदिवासी कहने में ना बहुत सारे लोगों को है ना हिचकिचाहट होती थी और वो डरते भी थे कि मैं अगर आदिवासी आइडेंटिटी डिस्क्लोज कर दूंगा तो मुझे इसका नेगेटिव इंपैक्ट देखना पड़ेगा। लेकिन अब हो रहा है कि सारी जो है ना महाराष्ट्र में तो ऐसे है ना 22 ऐसे जो सब कम्युनिटीज हैं वो आदिवासी में आना चाहते हैं। तो आदिवासी की आइडेंटिटी जो है ना ये न्यू जनरेशन जो को अगर प्रोटेक्ट करते हैं और ये जो है ना हम आदिवासी जो है अदर कम्युनिटीज से डिफरेंट हैं, उसके लिए ये सारे के सारे ट्रेडिशनल मैनेजमेंट के कंसेप्ट हैं। अगर हम अच्छे से जान लेते हैं उसका प्रचार अच्छे से होता है और न्यू जनरेशन जो है इनको पता चलता है कि इसके ये बेनिफिट हैं और हमारा जो प्राइड है जिसमें माता का या फिर जो ना जो धरती मेरी माता है या फिर जिसमें मदर टंग में बात करता हूँ, ये हमारे लिए प्राइड की बात है। तो ये नेक्स्ट जनरेशन जो ना ये इजीली जानती भी है। आप यूट्यूब पे देख लो, आप नागपुरी सॉन्ग देख लो या फिर हमारे यहाँ के सॉन्ग देख लो। अब जो है ना ट्राइबल मैरिजेस में ना ये डीजे बीजे नहीं बजते। मुझे लगता है कि कोई भी ट्राइबल विडोज होगी या फिर जो ट्राइबल डॉटर होगी, वुमेन होगी, उसे भी इक्वल शेयर देना चाहिए। और ये अगर हम अच्छे से क्वालिफाइड कर लेते हैं या फिर लॉ में उसे लेजिस्लेशन में कन्वर्ट करते हैं या फिर पैसा का रूढ़िगत ग्राम सभा का जो अधिकार है उसे अगर हम ट्वेल करते हैं तो ये सारी चीजें जो ना हल हो सकती हैं। इतना ही मेरा मानना है। अगर किसी को कुछ इशू रहा तो हम बात करेंगे। ओके, थैंक यू।
Thank you, panelists. I think it was a very interesting session. The young people coming with brilliant ideas. And I like the Mayorno's paper in the sense he's trying to look at, how do people really go through psychologically when there is a transition from one phase to another, when you are moving from a traditional religion to an alien religion. How does it really affect an individual? I think that's a fascinating, in the sense, psychological issues. And these are issues I think young people are doing it. I really find very fascinating, taking this kind of a problem. But only thing I thought is that the dark side when you talk about it. I'm not asking an answer to it, but the dark side. You think it seems to be all of a sudden. In the sense, I think the whole process of disintegration of the so-called dormitory or room that in Nagaland is called. It's a historical process. It didn't really happen at one given point of time. So that I think you have to really look at that. You give an impression that event happened, there was a complete rapture into it. I think this has gone through the long history. And not all the temples got converted into one single day. So this process has been there. So I think you really need to look into it. And I like your the psychological, how to go through it and how do you really capture it. Secondly is that I think, I don't know, how do you think about it? Because particularly in most of the Presbyterian and Baptist churches, or even the Catholic churches, once they are replacing so-called dormitory, this also replaced by some sort of youth associations. So I think, in fact, among the Baptists, probably much more, you find that the church has a choir, as a group. Of course, it is different, but many of the activities, there is no complete rapture. In the sense, even today, youth, when their houses are being made, they all go and put labor when their house someone is needed. So many of the activities which have been carried out under dormitory is in fact being taken up. But let's say many of these youth associations, which to some extent has replaced the dormitory. So what are those activities which are being carried out by these, and what are those activities which have really been? So that I think is interesting. You really need to look at. Sannyas again, I think is interesting. I think questions really talked about it is, Linda's work has really made a big breakthrough in terms of indigenous methodology. But Linda is, let's say, is a society which is very different than the Indian society. And therefore, how far her methodology is really going to be applicable to the kind of situation in which we live, where there has been a long history of the Adivasis or tribals living in conjunction, in coexistence with the others. And the hierarchy and dominations has been much more than the colonial period. So I think maybe you need to give some thought to it. Or on, on customary law codification, there are two opinions. I think even in mainland India, even Northeast India, there are many who vary. When you codify, it's no longer customary law, because the customary law means it moves along with time. It's not static. This happened. It's just it's a living. So it continuously moves. But so when you codify, it may have happened this. But supposing after 100 years you look at, then you find it may not necessarily the same. So there is two things. One is the codifications of the customary law, but there's a danger to codification. The codification, when it is there, then the state knows that this is your customary law. And they can take advantage of the fact that this is the law, and therefore, land and resources and other kinds of things can really be appropriated. But when it is a non-codified, state is not aware of it. It varies from it, and it's only people are aware of it. So it gives advantages to the people because they have a non-codified law. So these are some of the dangers. There are, Mizoram has codified it, but Nagas have not really codified properly. So, there are Khasis, there was an attempt to codify, but then there have been great, resistance to that. So these are issues. So it's not black and white, codify kar do, non-codify kar. There are layers within this whole idea of codification. What is the implications that we really have about it? So these are issues I think we need to think about it. Thank you so much, and thank you for your very good presentation.
Thank you once again for all the comprehensive, informative presentations today. I right now request the moderator to hand over a memento as a token for the participants. I shall also invite Father Sunil Bara. Father Sunil Bara is presently working as an HR and administrator with Jesuit Refugee Service, popularly known as JRS, of South Asia I would also thank our moderator for the wonderful moderation, and would like to honor him with a token as with a memento as a token of love, and I would I'm sure about it. Would request Father Sunil Bara to extend his vote of thanks.
जोहार, गुड आफ्टरनून। आज का यह सवेरे का सेशन अंतिम पड़ाव में है और मैं 2 शब्द कहने के लिए यहाँ पर उपस्थित हूँ। सबसे पहले जो आज का सेशन रहा, मॉर्निंग का सेशन रहा, वो 2 भाग में था और ये दोनों भाग में हमने पहले भाग में पाया कि डॉक्टर या फादर जेफरनुस बाखला और मॉडरेट कर रहे थे डॉक्टर प्रोफेसर वर्जिनियस खाखा। बाखला और खाखा दोनों थे। So on behalf of organizing committee, I take this opportunity to thank both of them. First of all, I thank Professor Jepherinus Bakla, who was the main speaker for us, who spoke